Chapter 1. Xiaoshan, I'll go first. Pay attention to the time and don't work too late. The girl opposite him stood up from her desk and waved to Guanshan as she whispered. Under the light, the girl's face, with a little baby fat, looked serious. Her white skin was pink, and her black eyes were bright and clear, reflecting Guanshan's appearance. The girl was called Shun Dinghua, a photographer for the local newspaper called Hangzhou Evening News. Guanshan was a reporter for the newspaper. The two grew up together and were childhood sweethearts. Guanshan didn't raise his head. Got it. I'll leave after I finish editing this article. Shun Dinghua puffed up her cheeks and moved closer to Guanshan, muttering, Last time you said the same thing, but when I called you at 2 o'clock in the morning, you were still working. It's not good for your health to sleep late. Don't make it sound like I was forced to work overtime by the newspaper. I just couldn't sleep at home, so I finished some unfinished work. Guanshan retorted and then complained. And you didn't sleep either, right? What if I was sleeping and you call me in the middle of the night? Wouldn't I be woken up by you? Don't be mean to me. The girl immediately squatted down and held her head with both hands. She looked at Guanshan pitifully and stretched out 2 fingers like an antenna on the top of her head, saying, Because your house is just opposite mine. As long as I open the curtains, I can see that your bedroom light is still on. Guanshan stretched out his finger and flicked the girl's forehead. You're so smart. Ouch. The girl panicked and let go of her hand, lost her balance, and fell back. Guanshan was shocked and immediately reached out to catch her, but his hand was held. He looked up and saw Shun Dinghua blinking at him without any sign of falling down. She stood up and asked with a smile, Xiaoshan, why are you always fooled? Guanshan turned his head and said angrily, How would I know? Then no matter how the girl acted coquettishly, she didn't say anything. Well, then I'm really leaving, Xiaoshan. Remember not to come back too late. I'll watch you. Got it. Although that was what he said. But when Guanshan walked out of the newspaper office, it was already late. The night in Hangzhou was not silent. The lights and traffic formed another galaxy. The summer night breeze was a little cool. Cuckoo, Guanshan touched his empty stomach and remembered that he had forgotten to eat dinner. At this time, the restaurant that I usually go to is already closed. Why don't I go home and eat instant noodles? Just as he was thinking about this, he saw a glowing advertisement light box after taking 2 steps. Our restaurant provides self-service meat, 30 yuan per person. You can eat as much as you want. Guanshan raised his head and saw a large signboard. He thought suspiciously, Meat restaurant? I haven't seen it before. Is it a new shop? It was already past midnight, and there were only a few passers-by around. However, the restaurant in front of him was brightly lit, and there was a constant hubbub of voices. The bright light box at the door of the restaurant attracted a large number of moths and mosquitoes. They surrounded the box and constantly hit the box. The ground was covered with dense corpses, hidden in the shadows. Through the glass window, he could vaguely see customers eating hard. Almost every table was full of large plates of food. Some were piled high, and he could see various kinds of stewed meat and even some shapeless meat. Guanshan sniffed and smelled a strong meat fragrance, mixed with spices, oil, and salt. It was very tempting. It smells so good. This meat fragrance was like a hook that went straight into his stomach, hooking his appetite and dragging it out. It was impossible to resist. Although the hygienic conditions were a bit poor and the price was too cheap, it really smelled so good. He was so hungry. Gulp! Guanshan swallowed his saliva. The tip of his nose and mouth were full of the almost oily meat fragrance, which made his whole stomach restless. Gastric acid and saliva were secreted at the same time. The hunger instantly attacked his brain, leaving him almost only one thought. Smells so good. I'm so hungry. I want to eat. I want to eat. I want to eat. I want to eat. When Guanshan came back to his senses, he had already pushed open the glass door and walked into the restaurant. Inside, the hubbub of voices that he had heard outside suddenly disappeared. The sound of chewing, swallowing, and clattering of cups and plates combined into a noisy background. No one was talking around him. All the customers were burying their heads in the meat on their plates. The waiter greeted him with a smile. Hello, sir. How many? 1. Guanshan swallowed his saliva again. Smelling the meat fragrance in the air, he only felt hungry and had no energy to pay attention to others. After paying, he glanced at an empty seat and immediately walked over. He squeezed sideways between two tables and accidentally knocked over a plate. Splat! Guanshan looked down and saw that it was a piece of fat intestine that had fallen on the ground. The white layer of fat flowed out of the large intestine. Under the warm light, it seemed to have faint traces of blood. Ah, sorry. Guanshan hurriedly apologized, but the middle-aged, white-collared customer didn't even raise his head. He didn't even care that his clothes were dirty. He just kept stuffing meat into his mouth and growling like a wild beast. Guanshan saw this and scratched his head. He didn't want to disturb others, so he continued to walk to his seat. He sat down in an empty seat, swallowed his saliva again, and waited for the waiter to serve him. He turned on his phone, logged on to QQ, and sent a message to Shin Dinghua. Green Mountain Beyond Mountains. The new buffet restaurant near the newspaper office is very good. Do you want to try it next time? Rui Xiong. You're working so late again. Green Mountain Beyond Mountains. How is it late? It's not even midnight yet. At most, this is the beginning of the nightlife. Rui Xiong. Sophistry. Fortunately, I've been waiting this time. I specially made wolfberry, red dates, and white fungus soup for you. Come and eat. Rui Xiong. Right, what buffet? There aren't any new restaurants near the newspaper office. Green Mountain Beyond Mountains. A buffet restaurant called Meat Restaurant. It's opposite the newspaper office. Rui Xiong. Question mark. Rui Xiong. Opposite, turn left, and it's still the closed SX snack restaurant. I went there today to sweep the streets and took photos. There's no buffet. Did you remember wrong? The other party sent a photo. It was very clear, and the time was today. It was taken at the position where Guanshan saw the advertisement light box. The light box in the photo had the words fried noodles, fried rice, and other words, and behind it was an SX snack restaurant. Guanshan's pupils shrank, and he felt his scalp go numb. If this place had always been an SX snack restaurant, then where was he now? Bang! The heavy plate was placed on the table with a dull thud. Guanshan looked up and saw the waiter smiling. Sir, I wish you a pleasant meal. Thank you. Guanshan forced a smile, comforting himself that he was overthinking. The waiter looked quite normal. Then he suddenly froze. A mechanical voice suddenly sounded in his ears, and lines of words appeared in front of him. Host conditions have been met. Starting horror game simulator. Start complete. This simulator will randomly trigger horror game content for the host to experience based on different scenes. All effects are based on reality. Please pay attention to your personal safety when playing. We wish you a pleasant game. Please note that all props and scenes generated by this simulator are virtual. Please do not take them seriously. Scene scan complete. Generating horror game. Generated horror game. Meat restaurant. Plot loading, please wait. Status bar, inventory bar, and item bar have been unlocked. Guanshan's vision blurred, and then a simple game interface appeared in his vision. On the upper left were health and stamina bars, and the lower left 4 item bars were empty. At the same time, Guanshan, who had raised his head, happened to look over the waiter's shoulder and saw the kitchen behind. At that moment, behind the half-closed door, the back of a chef who was slowly chopping meat with a kitchen knife could be vaguely seen. The chef's body was exceptionally large. Based on Guanshan's estimation, he was at least 2 meters tall. The bloated body was squeezed into the small space, like an elephant stuffed into a fridge. The chef raised his hand and hung the cut meat on a hook at the side. That was not meat. It was a hand. Chapter 2. Captain, another victim has appeared. There's not much time left. When do we start the operation? If this continues, more and more innocent people will be sacrificed. Shuman Lin was hiding in the corner of the restaurant. She watched Guanshan take a seat next to her and reported to her superior with a solemn expression. She was wearing an earpiece made by a special type C-rank ability user, which allowed her to transmit telepathic messages. This conversation wouldn't be noticed by the 2 D-rank ability users in the restaurant. And Shuman Lin's mission target this time was the 2 D-rank ability users who were pretending to be the chef and waiter in the restaurant, Zhao Hong and Fong Minmin. These two guys were both of the meat system. One was a strengthening type, while the other was a mutation type. As pure criminals with antisocial personalities, these two people only had one purpose in committing crimes, and that was to satisfy their own desires. Lure, control, and kill. In just a short week, dozens of lives have been taken by their hands. And Schumann Lin, as a member of the Special Security Operations Team, was sent to act as a spy for this operation because of her unique camouflage ability. Captain Lin Wu's voice was heard. Don't be impatient. The opponent's ability this time is very unusual. The experts are still analyzing it. Once we act blindly, it's likely to cause more casualties. Schumann Lin took a deep breath. I understand, she looked at the waiter. The latter was serving Guan Shan a plate of meat with unknown ingredients but attractive color. Once eaten, it was equivalent to being parasitized and becoming the opponent's puppet. Damn it, another innocent person was going to be sacrificed? The piece of meat hanging on the hook had fine palm lines, slender joints, and red nail polish on the 5 fingers. It was clearly a woman's hand. Guan Shan froze in his seat for a moment. Illusion? How could this be an illusion? What's the situation with this horror game simulator? Explain to me what it means to pay attention to personal safety when playing. Do you want people to die in this game? I was just having a meal. How did it turn into a horror movie? What the hell is going on? Although Guan Shan's heart was in a mess, he didn't show it on the surface, fully displaying his self-restraint as a reporter. This was because he knew very well what the consequences would be if he really screamed in this kind of situation in horror movies. Therefore, with a rather calm expression, he forcibly withdrew his gaze from the hand that was still dripping blood. But before he could sort out his emotions, he smelled an extremely fishy and disgusting smell that assaulted his face. It was the smell of countless piles of rotting meat that had been fermenting for several months. Ugh! Guan Shan's face suddenly changed, and he couldn't help but cover his mouth and nose. He almost vomited. He lowered his head, and his pupils instantly contracted. The only thing he could be sure of was, this shape and size was definitely not animal meat. Guan Shan's, Schumann. The latter walked back politely, bent down, and asked, "Hello, sir. Is there anything I can help you with?" Guan Shan felt like he was about to suffocate. Hearing the waiter's pleasant voice, he hurriedly pointed at the unknown object. This. But when he looked up, the waiter's ugly face made up of wriggling pieces of meat suddenly came into view. When the waiter spoke, the mottled, rotting, and greasy pieces of meat squeezed each other like living creatures, making gurgling sounds. F***CK. At this moment, the waiter's face was only 20 centimeters away. This extremely impactful scene at close range made Guan Shan's eyelids twitch, and he almost jumped up. He wanted to take back his words. F***CK. This waiter is normal my ass. This is even scarier than the one in the kitchen. So, this horror game simulator turned everything he saw into a part of the game. But this game is too realistic. Guan Shan tried his best to control his facial expression. He swallowed his saliva and tried his best to calm his rapid breathing and beating heart. Calm down. At this moment, if he showed any flaws, he wouldn't be far from death. Guan Shan prepared himself mentally, gritted his teeth, and endured the disgust as he looked directly into the eyes of this unknown object. He mustn't feel guilty. No cough, no problem. I just had an allergic reaction. It's an old problem. It's nothing serious. Ha. You don't have to worry at all. Guan Shan swallowed his sour saliva and revealed the standard smile of a professional reporter. Are you really okay? I saw that you were pointing at your plate and wanted to say something to me. If you have any dissatisfaction, you must tell us. We'll be happy to accept and correct it, the waiter said enthusiastically. In the middle of the wriggling rotten meat on his face, an eyeball with mucus and laces suddenly popped out like a blooming flower. It turned a few times and stared at Guan Shan. It seemed to be observing his expression. Damn, just now I found that there seems to be spices in the meat that will trigger my allergy. I wanted you to help me get rid of it, but when I took a closer look, I realized that it wasn't. My allergy is probably caused by the dust on the road. Guanshan's face still had a professional smile, and there was no flaw in it at all. Sorry to disturb you. You do your thing. The eyeball on the waiter's face stretched out like a snake. It was only a few centimeters away from Guanshan's eyes and stared at him back and forth. Guanshan jumped up and down. He felt that his back was almost soaked in cold sweat. If this continues, I'll have to live in Clamport. Fortunately, after about 2 or 3 seconds, the waiter retracted his eyeball. She smiled and said, "Then I won't disturb your meal. If you have any problems, you must tell us immediately. Our restaurant pays the most attention to service." Guanshan looked at the departing back of the waiter and heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. He was about to collapse. At this time, he suddenly noticed that in addition to the game interface in front of him, 2 lines of words and a health bar appeared on top of the waitress's head. Meat Nest, waiter, LV6, health points for 100 description. Where is she? She is everywhere. Level? Health bar? Weird. This waiter is weird. Guanshan's head was suddenly enlightened. So it's really this horror game simulator's doing. It simulated a scene based on reality, and then let me fight the monsters. The mechanical voice sounded in Guanshan's ears again. Plot loading completed. Late at night, you stepped into a strange buffet restaurant. Under the warm and bright light, the meat in the pot is not meat. The people in the restaurant are not people. New player tip. Please observe the scene carefully and use items to kill the opponent. The more kills, the higher the score, and the more rewards. Asterisk note. Only by killing the final boss can this simulation end. Items in the scene? Guanshan caught the keyword. He carefully looked around and saw a strange, shining spot under the dining table next to him. When he focused on this point, a string of information immediately popped up. Glock 17, bullet capacity, 1,717 attack power, 50 description, a pistol that can be seen everywhere. What the F asterisk CK? This game is quite naughty, but isn't it too much to say that it can be seen everywhere? Guanshan could not help but complain in his heart. However, looking at the pistol that was less than a meter away from him, he still felt a little comforted. As long as there was a weapon and a health bar, it was fine. At least it meant that this simulator simulated Resident Evil and not Escape. Then Guanshan's eyes flashed and moved to the mountain of meat in the kitchen that was trembling with the sound of duh. The final boss should be that guy, right? Boss, butcher, chef of it. Health points, 1,200. Description. The living are called humans and the dead are called meat. Guanshan was stunned. What a thick health bar. It's 3 times that of the waiter. Can this boss really be killed with a pistol? Or are there other items that I haven't found? Therefore, he took the time to look at all the information that he could gather in his field of vision. He did not have much to say. He only had 1 LV, 1 whiteboard. The customers in his field of vision had basically become monsters with the title Carnivore, and had become level 1 to level 3 monsters. The system also prompted that he could level up by killing monsters. The restaurant is only so big. Once I start moving, I will definitely attract the attention of the waiter. Now it seems that I can only try to move to other places and level up at the same time, then see if there are any other items. This is the only way. Guanshan took a deep breath and confirmed the position of the level 1 carnivore around him. The moment the waiter turned around, he rushed to the bottom of the table next to him. He grabbed the pistol. Chapter 3. In the corner of the restaurant. Shuman Lin was concentrating on communicating with Captain Lin Wu. Xiaoman, I'll repeat the information. The direction of Zhao Hong's physical strengthening is purely strengthening. The strength and metabolic capacity of the cells in his body have been greatly strengthened. Therefore, he has great strength and self-healing ability. However, the greatly multiplied nerve cells have aggravated his pain, and his mind is somewhat confused. This guy is not easy to deal with, but his movements are clumsy. You could try to kite him, as long as you can hit his eyes and other vital points. You can also cause him to be unable to recover in a short period of time. But Fong Minmin is easy to deal with. Her ability rating is C, and her main ability is a combination of the physical system and trait systems mind control. According to the research of the survivor's blood samples, Her ability is only effective within a certain range, and once the body dies, the control will be lifted. So your first task is not to kill them, but to lead them outside the restaurant into the encirclement, and then we will rescue those who are being controlled. Understand? Schumann Lin took a deep breath and said seriously, "Understood." Lin Wu whispered, "Very good, let's begin." Schumann Lin pulled out the pistol from behind her leg, closed her eyes, and tried to make her eyes as unfocused as possible, stood up from her seat, and slowly moved toward the kitchen. But strangely, the waitress Fong Minmin, who had been patrolling the restaurant, did not seem to notice her. Even though her eyes had already swept over her, she still walked past. This was Schumann Lin's trait system ability, sense of presence. Although it sounded funny, but this was a rare cognitive modification ability, very rare and powerful. But because her current mental power was not strong, the conditions to activate it were more harsh. Ordinary people would not be able to detect it, but it was more troublesome for the same ability user. Once the other party noticed her gaze or heard her voice, it was possible for the other party to discover her. So, she had to be careful. There was only one chance to severely injure Zhao Hong. As long as she could anger him, the probability of leading him away was 100%. And Fong Minmin had always been led by Zhao Hong. If the latter left, she would inevitably follow. The butcher in the kitchen was taking off the arm hanging on the side, which obviously belonged to Fong Minmin, and mixing it with the meat provided for the guests. The sound of chopping meat was getting closer, along with the heavy and rough breathing of the mountain of meat. Schumann Lin had goosebumps all over her body. She was nervous to the extreme. The constantly moving figure under the swaying light in the kitchen, as if it could turn around at any time. Schumann Lin raised her gun. But at this moment, Zhao Hong suddenly seemed to have noticed something and turned around abruptly. Lin Schumann rolled on the ground and rolled under the table at the side. She broke out in a cold sweat on the spot, but Zhao Hong just mumbled and waved his hand to chase away the flies. Phew! Lin Schumann heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, this person? Schumann Lin was about to stand up again when she suddenly noticed the young man sitting next to her. He was the last guest to enter the restaurant before she made her move. Strange, the meat on his table seems to be untouched. Did he not eat? Schumann Lin was startled. Ordinary people who were affected by Fong Minmin's ability should have developed an uncontrollable appetite for her body. But the young man in front of her had not touched the meat at all. Just as Schumann Lin's doubts arose, she saw the young man looking around. Then, he suddenly pounced on her. Schumann Lin was dumbfounded. Because it was too unexpected, she was unable to react. She subconsciously raised the gun in her hand. But in the next moment, the young man directly snatched the gun away from her. Guanshan followed the light and reached out. Sure enough, he grabbed a gun and it automatically entered his equipment slot. Although he did not know why there was a gun in the restaurant, he did not care. Wasn't it common knowledge that there were weapons and ammunition everywhere in horror games? It was just as he had thought earlier. Just as he left his seat, the waitress immediately noticed the movement. She quickly turned her head and let out an indescribable scream. The purplish-black flesh on her face instantly split open. Dozens of eyeballs moved around wildly. Then, all of them stared at Guanshan. The customers in the restaurant all raised their heads, revealing ferocious faces covered with black veins that looked like spider webs. The sound of chopping meat in the kitchen stopped. Then, the mountain of meat let out an inhuman roar and the entire wall collapsed. Bang! A huge shadow squeezed out from the narrow kitchen. In an instant, all the customers who were busy eating were all crushed into meat paste. Countless tiny tentacles grew from the bottom of the swollen face. They waved about, making the scarlet eyes that were filled with blood vessels and killing intent even more terrifying. The chef, who was 3 meters tall, stared at Guanshan as soon as he came out. Roar! He roared. The sarcomas and tentacles all over his body danced with the wind. With a boning knife in his hand, he stepped on the floor and cracked it. He really was like a road roller. F*CK, F*CK, F*CK. F***CK. Guan Shan's scalp went numb. He was so scared that all the hair on his body stood up. He did not dare to stop for a moment. As he ran, he did not forget to raise the gun in his hand at the monsters around him. As soon as he raised the gun, an aiming screen appeared in his field of vision. The crosshair moved along with his gaze. As long as his gaze was locked, the muzzle in his hand would also be locked. Moreover, when he focused, the monsters in his field of vision would have a vital point notification. Self-aiming. Thank God. This game can still be played. At this moment, Guan Shan was so moved that he was about to cry. Bang! 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 3 consecutive shots, each of them a headshot. The few customers who had just shakily stood up instantly fell to the ground. These level 1 customers had 75 HP. With the 50 damage of the pistol, it should have taken 2 shots. However, because it was a critical hit, it killed them in 1 shot. EXP plus 50, EXP plus 50, EXP plus 50, LV. 1 LV. 2. Current EXP. 50,200. Current HP. 100, 200. I've leveled up. Guan Shan was ecstatic. He instantly felt a strange warm current spread throughout his body. He suddenly felt that his fists had become lighter and stronger. However, this improvement was still a drop in the bucket. The roaring behemoth behind him chased him relentlessly. The distance between them was getting closer. Guan Shan continued to move around in circles as if he was walking on a tightrope. He also fired a few more shots at the level 2 and 3 monsters. More EXP allowed him to level up to level 5 in one go. Current EXP, 150,500. Current HP, 400, 500. The visible increase in his HP and stamina bars made Guan Shan feel that his chances of survival had increased. However, at this time, he only had 5 bullets left in his gun. Suddenly, Guan Shan's sharp eyes saw that there seemed to be a white light flashing beside the bodies of the monsters on the ground. Dropped items. His eyes lit up. Just as he was about to check it out, he suddenly felt a chill behind him. Guan Shan subconsciously turned his head. From the corner of his eye, he saw a sharp blade approaching quickly. Chapter 4. **T. Guan Shan's heart tightened, and he immediately rolled to the side. Swoosh! Boom! The chef roared as he swung his sword, and the blade whistled through the air, splitting the table beside him and a customer into 2 halves. The remaining force did not diminish, and even the floor was lifted up, causing debris and dust to fly in all directions. Thanks to his greatly improved physique, Guan Shan reacted in an instant and dodged the blade. However, the next moment, the knotted sarcoma and tentacles on the chef's shoulder suddenly grew, twisting into a 3rd arm and attacking him. It was so fast that it turned into an afterimage. Boom! Guan Shan felt as if he had been hit by a mammoth. His spinning vision was covered in dark red, and his health bar dropped by about a quarter. He rolled a few times on the ground, got up, and coughed twice. He wiped his hand, and his mouth was full of blood. But it didn't hurt. This simulator's purpose is to provide entertainment, and it seeks to provide a simulated environment. It promises that it will not cause the player any pain. The mechanical voice sounded at the right time. You're so King considerate. Guan Shan cursed as he got up from the ground and scrambled to the corner, collecting the white light along the way. Although the wound did not hurt, the damage on his body would not disappear. His left arm and right calf were probably fractured, and his breathing was not smooth either. It was probably an internal injury. However, he was lucky that he had been sent flying, and now he was a distance away from the boss. Guan Shan took the opportunity to check the dropped items information, and he was immediately overjoyed. These monsters dropped healing potions. Flesh entanglement parasite *3 effect. Slow recovery of health description. Connective tissue that emits a strange stench seems to be a part of someone's body, and it carries some tenacious vitality. This thing's appearance was a little indescribable. However, at this critical moment, Guan Shan could not care less. He gritted his teeth and swallowed it. Luckily, it doesn't have any taste, but the texture is terrible. Guan Shan saw his health bar begin to rise, and it rose by 10 points every second. His wounds began to heal automatically, and his arms and calves were quickly covered in white light, gradually recovering. That's not slow at all. If this is called slow, then how effective would the rapid healing medicine be? He was pleasantly surprised and slightly relieved. He turned around and tried to shoot the chef in the eyes twice. However, this guy simply pulled the surrounding fat and tentacles to the center, instantly forming a meat shield for his face. The bullets sank in without even making a sound. Two pitiful -30 damage floated up, making Guan Shan's heart turn cold. This guy's defense is really high. If I don't hit his vitals, I won't be able to deal any effective damage. I still have 3 bullets left. If I can't find a way to make him lose his combat ability, I'll be the one to die. What's more, there's a waiter who's eyeing me covetously. I can't just sit here and wait for my death. Guan Shan turned around and took a deep breath. He focused and raised his spear. It's impossible for the boss to be invincible. There must be a weakness that he can't protect. If it's not an obvious part of the body, then I can only rely on the simulator's hints. However, the notification had to be triggered through gaze, which meant that he had to stop his gaze for a sufficient amount of time. At the same time, he had to face the boss directly. Shuman Lin was stunned under the table. She was completely dumbfounded by what she saw. The man grabbed the gun and stood up. After alarming Zhao Hong and Fong Minmin, the first thing he did was to fire 3 shots in a row and kill 3 customers. The scene of the customers' brains bursting and blood splattering was clearly reflected in her eyes. In her heart, she originally speculated that the other party was one of their own, but the idea was instantly overturned. Shooting at ordinary people without hesitation was definitely not the style of the Tang formation. What's more, one of the most important tasks in their mission was to save the lives of the hostages in the restaurant as much as possible. However, this person was able to shoot accurately with 1 headshot while moving. His clean and neat movements made him seem like a highly trained soldier or someone from the gray area. Could he be one of those mercenaries who made money by killing low-level mutants? Or was he a member of the mutant organization Killer Bees that had recently appeared in Binjiang City? Not far away, Zhao Hong roared, and the muscles all over his body swelled to the extreme. In an instant, he transformed into a demon muscle man. With a boning knife in his hand, he rushed toward the young man. The latter shuttled through the restaurant, constantly killing customers with precision, and his speed was getting faster and faster. Every gunshot represented the loss of a customer's life. Captain Lin's voice came from the headset. "Xiao Man, I heard gunshots. Have you started? When you come out from that side, I'll get them ready to pick you up." Shuman Lin quickly said, "It's not me." Lin Wu asked, "What's wrong? What's the situation?" Shuman Lin stammered, "The last customer who came in 10 minutes ago, he just took my gun and is now fighting with Zhao Hong. At the same time, he is also killing the hostages." Lin Wu said in a deep voice, "Calm down. Are you saying that the customer may be a third party?" "Yes. I've pulled up the customer's information. It's a reporter named Guan Shan. Just from the information alone, I can't see anything unusual. It's possible that he was replaced." Lin Wu's experience in dealing with various emergencies was much richer than Shuman Lin. He immediately changed his strategy. That person's main target is Zhao Hong, and you haven't been exposed yet, right? Shuman Lin nodded. "Yes." "Very good," Lin Wu said. "Now your mission has changed to kill Fong Minmin." Shuman Lin's eyes widened, and she couldn't help but say, "Brother, but Xiao Man, you have to believe in your brother." Lin Wu said softly, "Fong Minmin's attack power is lower than Zhao Hong's. Now that Zhao Hong is being held back by a third party, the biggest threat has temporarily disappeared. It's the best time to kill Fong Minmin. The hostage is no longer a hostage when we lose control. Only then can we act freely. So, use your superpower to kill her. Do you understand?" Lin Wu's decisions were always irresistible. Shuman Lin took a deep breath. Understood. The situation was urgent. She carefully peeked her head out and walked towards Fong Minmin, who had been manipulating the customers, and pulled out a dagger. Shuman Lin's ability ensured that she wouldn't be discovered, and the training she received and the special combat suit gave her the power to kill Fong Minmin. The rest was simple. However, Schumann Lin went behind Fong Minmin and was about to make a move. She saw Guan Shan, who had been flying a kite, suddenly seemed to be attracted by something, and his movements paused for a moment. Zhao Hong grinned and suddenly sped up to catch up. He didn't hold back his strength and sent the former flying with a punch. Kacha! The dull wind from the punch brought along the sound of bones breaking. Schumann Lin was shocked, and her heart sank. Although Zhao Hong was only a D-class, he was a pure, flesh-type ability user. The full force of his explosive strength was enough to break through alloy plates, let alone a human body. From the performance of that person just now, he should be an ordinary person who had been trained. This punch was probably enough to make him lose the ability to fight. Without this person delaying, Zhao Hong would soon refocus his attention on Fong Minmin, and it would be even more difficult to assassinate her. Schumann Lin gritted her teeth and directly went towards Fong Minmin's defenseless back, ready to slit her throat. At this moment, she saw Guan Shan, who had rolled on the ground a few times, get up as if nothing had happened, cursing and swearing. His speed didn't decrease at all. What was even more terrifying and weird was that he then stabbed his bare hands into the heads of the customers' corpses at lightning speed and dug out a cluster of wriggling tentacles that was beating like an undeveloped heart. Then he swallowed it. Her pupils contracted in disbelief. How is it possible? What is he doing? What is that thing? But these three questions were just a flash of thought. The dagger in Schumann Lin's hand had already slit Fong Minmin's throat. Things went unexpectedly smoothly. Fong Minmin's fallen body was at her feet, but Schumann Lin suddenly felt a chill crawl up her spine. If the brains of those customers had become that kind of thing, then, from the beginning, there might not have been any hostages, and they had been replaced by Fong Minmin's body tissues. But what really made Schumann Lin's scalp tingle was that they had saved more than 10 hostages before and had settled them in the research institute for several weeks. For such a long time, the experts in the institute and all the members of the third team had all been in contact with Fong Minmin's parasites. She raised her head. Unknowingly, the customers around had all turned to look at her, revealing a strange smile, and said in unison, "Xiao Man, did you kill Fong Minmin? Why aren't you talking?" Their voices perfectly overlapped with the sound coming from the earpiece. It was Lin Wu's voice. Chapter 5. Trap. This was a trap. Schumann Lin instantly understood. She raised the dagger in her hand and looked at the surrounding customers. She slowly stepped back and said with a trembling voice, "What did you do to my brother and the research institute?" "I named my ability Desire Virus. In addition to making others develop an uncontrollable appetite for my body, its biggest function is to parasitize and consume others. It can also control their thoughts and turn them into another body of mine. The only problem is that it must lurk in the target's body for 3 months. Sounds like a long time, right?" Lin Wu laughed softly in the earpiece like a demon. "Unfortunately, it has been exactly 3 months since you captured my first parasitic body. And in just the first day, my parasitic body infected more than 20 people. In a closed environment like the Research Institute, how fast do you think the infection rate will be?" "Ha!" Lin Wu laughed loudly and seemed to have connected the earpiece to the public channel. A burst of chaotic fighting and gunfire came from the earpiece, indicating the fall of the third team and its affiliated research institute. Schumann Lin's heart sank to the bottom. Now, she was alone and helpless. The so-called troops waiting outside to cooperate with her was just a lie. She stepped back bit by bit, suppressing her fear and trying to stall for time. "So, this operation, from the planning to the execution, is already under your control. The remaining people who are not under your control are just clowns in your eyes." One of the female customers let out Fong Minmin's voice and walked towards her with a smile. "Yes, but because Lin Wu's resistance was too strong and even sealed part of his self, I couldn't completely obtain his memory. So, I didn't know that your ability was to eliminate your own sense of existence until just before the operation. You, who can't be seen, became the only uncertain factor." She paused and said, "At least before." Schumann Lin's pupils constricted as she understood the other party's plan. So, you tricked me into attacking directly? As long as you can sense it, my ability will collapse on its own. Fong Minmin smiled slyly. Don't waste time with words. Your research institute is completely under my control. You don't have any weapons on you except for the gun and dagger with special bullets. Because your ability can only take effect when your body weight is less than 50 kilograms. And your gun was snatched away by that guy. The customers approached step by step, their eyes like a pack of wolves that saw their prey. Schumann Lin kept stepping back until she hit the table. She swallowed and said loudly, "You know that he stole my gun. Aren't you afraid that guy will kill your husband?" According to the data, before Zhao Hong and Fong Minmin awakened their abilities, they were husband and wife. And it was led by Zhao Hong. So, when they made the plan, as long as Zhao Xiaoyu, Fong Minmin would follow them. When Fong Minmin heard this, the smile on her face became brighter. She walked forward and grabbed Schumann Lin's neck, slowly tightening her grip. Although I don't know where that crazy guy came from, you don't really think that he can kill a pure physical enhancement ability user with just a few bullets, do you? She could clearly see from the side that this troublemaker had no special ability at all. With Zhao Hong's strength, this guy would be turned into a pile of meat paste with just a few punches. What was even more ridiculous was that he took the initiative to swallow her parasites. There were so many of them, but as long as she thought about it, they didn't move at all. The smile on Fong Minmin's face suddenly froze and turned into disbelief. How is it possible? My parasites. How can my parasites not react? The thing that had kept her calm from the beginning was suddenly gone. She felt uneasy and turned her head abruptly. Bang, bang, bang. Gunshots suddenly sounded. The chef, who was like a mountain of meat, fell to the ground with a howl. Roar. The roaring mountain of meat approached in an instant. Its speed was incredible. The chef's bloody mouth cracked open to his lower jaw, revealing spiral teeth that went straight to his throat. The rotten meat paste on them was clearly visible, and even the stench of his breath seemed to be close in an instant. The tables and chairs along the way were shattered, like a black cloud that was about to destroy the city. It was so terrifying that it made people tremble. In just 3 seconds, the chef roared and rushed over, his eyes full of pure malice and killing intent. 5 meters, 3 meters, 1 meter. He raised his thick arm and waved a 1 meter long boning knife. The blade was like a hanging moon. Guan Shan's heart was pounding, almost jumping out of his throat, and his hand was slightly trembling. In this almost slowed-down movement, he finally saw the chef's vital part that was marked red. The silver light was aimed at Guan Shan's head. Bang! A gunshot. A cloud of blood suddenly splashed out. Ouch! The chef howled in pain. The knife in his hand fell to the ground with a clang, and he reached out to cover his lower body that was bleeding. Bang! Bang! Guan Shan would not feel pity for a terrifying game boss that almost killed him, so he immediately added the last 2 shots. This time, the blood flowed like a waterfall. It was painful to watch, but Guan Shan looked at the floating -300, -300, and -100, and his heart was only filled with ecstasy. The effect of focusing on one place is still limited, but to directly reduce a 1200 HP to 500, it's already very effective. Guan Shan was scared half to death just now. Every dog has its day. Now, he could finally vent his anger. Kill him while he's down. He put the pistol into his backpack, bent down, and directly picked up the boning knife on the ground. Large boning knife. Attack. 100. Description. A custom-made knife with a size that far exceeds that of ordinary knives. It once peeled the skin of a lamb, leaving behind bloodstains that can't be washed away. Now I have a weapon, right? The simulator directly equipped it by default and helped him adjust his posture. The fixed attack is 100, which means that if I'm lucky and get a critical hit, I might be able to end the battle with 1 slash. Guan Shan immediately felt that victory was at hand and was overjoyed. He took the knife and walked to the front of the wailing chef on the ground. He moved his fully recovered arm, raised the butcher's knife, and aimed at the chef's exposed neck that was marked red. Guan Shan took a deep breath. Facing a humanoid monster was ultimately different from killing chickens or ducks. At the end of the day, it was not so easy to take action. He could only encourage himself. There's nothing to be afraid of. It'll be over soon. It's just a game. In order to make it easier to use force, Guan Shan stepped on the chin of the ferocious-looking chef to shut him up and stab the knife down. Dash 400. Critical hit. The chef's last struggle weakened, and his eyes widened as he gasped violently. There's still blood. Guan Shan was about to stab again. But at this moment, a piercing scream rang out. The customers suddenly swarmed toward him with their hands and feet as if they had gone crazy. And the waiter's entire face was turned outward as if a zipper had been unzipped. The skin bag fell to the ground, and several tentacles burst out, and a huge eyeball in the middle replaced its existence. The tentacles, which were covered with dense eyes, moved forward alternately like spider legs, and with a scream, they rushed in front of him in a few seconds. The scene was very unreal. Guan Shan's eyelids twitched, and he almost took half a step back. He muttered, "Sure enough, the boss in the final stage will summon small monsters. TSK, troublesome." But now his level was higher than these small monsters, and his equipment was much better. With the big boss under his feet, why would he be afraid of small fries like them? Roar! The customer at the front opened his mouth and pounced at Guan Shan. Inside, densely packed small tentacles were waving crazily, indicating that it was not human. Guan Shan took the opportunity to pick up the boning knife and flicked it upward. Poochie! The blade pierced through the lower jaw without any obstruction and came out from the top of the head. With a critical hit, the level 3 customer was turned into a skewer. EXP plus 150. Guan Shan kicked the dead body away and knocked several customers away. Among those customers, there was probably a level 1 unlucky guy who was knocked out and fell directly on the back of his head, dying on the spot. EXP plus 50, so fragile after the level gap. Guan Shan's eyes lit up, and the small monsters in front of him suddenly seemed to have all become walking experience. It just so happened that these monsters without intelligence were all crowded together. Guan Shan estimated the angle and stood with the knife, blocking the monster's position, and turned around. The boning knife easily cut open the abdomen of several customers, and blood splashed on the ground. EXP plus 100, EXP plus 50, EXP plus 150, LV, 5 LV, 6, current EXP, 200,600, current HP, 600. When Guan Shan heard the level up prompt, the waiter rushed in front of him. He looked at the LV6, HP 400 prompt above the waiter's head, pushed away the pile of corpses in front of him, took a deep breath, and greeted him without dodging. "Okay, it's your turn," Guan Shan murmured and slashed down. Blood dripped on the blade. EXP plus 50, huh? That's it. Guan Shan froze, and suddenly saw a figure among the customers suddenly flash and turn into the waiter with the waiter logo on her head. He remembered the description below the waiter. She was everywhere. So she has the ability to clone. Guan Shan suddenly realized and looked around. It seems that I have to clear all these small monsters. Shuman Lin sat on the ground, holding her throat and coughing for a while before she recovered. She staggered to stand up and looked up to see the corpses on the ground. Not far away, Guan Shan cut off one of the customers. No, those should be the heads of the parasites. He threw the headless body aside and murmured to himself, "Not this one again." Then he killed the next one. Every time he killed one, he murmured, "Not this one, not this one, not this one, not this one." Lin Shuman's heart skipped a beat when she saw this. She quickly covered her mouth and hid in a corner in fear. Her earpiece suddenly rang, and Lin Wu's weak and anxious voice came. Xiao Man, how are you?" The reinforcements from above have come and removed Fong Minmin's control over the parasites. You need to leave the restaurant immediately. There will be a violent purge. I know. Shuman Lin took a deep breath and nodded. Her sharp eyes noticed that Fong Minmin's previous parasite had died. Although she was not sure if the Lin Wu talking was real or not, she should leave the restaurant as soon as possible. Zhao Hong still had a breath left, and his eyes were gradually dimming, but he was still struggling. So, this guy is looking for Fong Minmin's real body? Schumann Lin looked at Zhao Hong's angry and bloodshot eyes filled with despair. Looking at the figure covered in blood and killing one person with each step, she shivered. She suddenly felt that maybe this guy wanted to torture Zhao Hong. In front of the husband, holding a butcher's knife, slowly finding the wife's position and then killing her. Probably, there was no more torture than this, right? This guy is taking revenge for the punch from before. But Guanshan looked around, and there were only 2 living creatures left in the restaurant. He also picked up all the dropped items, but he still could not find the real body of the waiter. He thought for a while, and suddenly looked back at the dying chef. After eliminating all the impossible, what's left isn't the only truth. Guanshan walked over and gave the final blow. Experience plus 1200, LV, 7, LV, 8. Current experience, 450,800. Current HP, 800. The chef's eyes completely dimmed. At the same time, his heart suddenly wriggled and countless tentacles broke out of the ground and spread in all directions. But when they spread halfway, they lost their vitality and turned into a charcoal-like object, shattering and drifting away. The chef's heart was the waiter's meat nest. Experience plus 600, LV, 8 LV, 9. Current experience, 250,900. Current HP, 900. Final boss has been killed. Simulation ended. This scenario will be destroyed. Player, please leave as soon as possible. Countdown, 0:59. Chapter 6. Boom! Guanshan had just run out of the alley when he heard a huge explosion behind him. He turned around and saw raging flames bursting out from the restaurant, shattering all the glass windows in an instant. The fire grew stronger, and in the blink of an eye, it engulfed the entire building with smoke. In the night, the cannibal restaurant was swallowed by the fire. Looking at the collapsing walls and roof, Guanshan took a deep breath. Is this the so-called destruction of a scene? Such a big commotion? However, on second thought, the simulator mentioned that it simulated scenes based on reality. Even though the monsters and scenes he saw were fake, he was running around in a real space, rolling around and getting hit by all kinds of things. In other words, if he was really in that SX snack shop, then there was a high probability that the tables and chairs were no longer intact. There might be some bloodstains left. Of course, it was his own. Thinking about it this way, destroying the evidence was indeed necessary. Luckily, it's an abandoned shop. No one should be injured. No one saw me, right? Guanshan suddenly felt a pang of guilt. He imagined the scene just now. It was probably him jumping left and right for no reason, doing all kinds of weird actions. He must have some kind of serious illness. If someone saw him like that, it would be scarier than a horror game. It would be a large-scale social death scene. How could there be anyone in the middle of the night, right? Hee. Guanshan laughed dryly to comfort himself. He subconsciously looked around. He really did not see anyone, but he heard the sound of sirens coming from the distance. He hesitated for a moment. Out of instinct as a reporter, he took out his phone and found a good angle to take a picture of the SX snack shop that was buried in the fire. At the same time, the countdown reached 0. The results screen opened. Game simulation completed. Cannibal restaurant. Final boss killed. 1-1. Rating. Elite monster killed. 1-1. Rating. Normal monster killed. 15-15. Rating. Acquired items. Glock 17 ammo. 0/17. *1. Large boning knife. *1. Flesh entanglement parasite. *7. Butcher's heart. *1. Meat nest prototype. *1. Rating. Perfect, able to keep all acquired items. Reward acquired. Game coins X1000, skill point X1. Unlocked achievement. Break up kitchen, kill all monsters in this simulation. Achievement reward. Skill book, rotten meat accumulation, *1. All rewards have been sent to your backpack. Please check. Store achievement and skill bars unlocked. Calculation complete. Player, please wait patiently for the next simulation. The next day, 7 a.m. Guanshan yawned on the bus, one hand holding the suspension, and looked at his phone with a sleepy face. When he came out of the restaurant yesterday, he realized that it was already 2 o'clock in the morning. There was no transportation available at all. Therefore, he could only walk home by himself. On the way, he sent a message to Shun Dinghua to comfort her. This idiot drank the cold, white fungus soup in a fit of pique. As a result, his stomach hurt and he couldn't sleep. In a daze, he still held his phone and only went to sleep when he saw Guan Shan's reply. When Guan Shan lay on his bed, it was already close to 4 o'clock. The sky was almost bright. Fortunately, the torn clothes and blood on his body recovered when he took the healing medicine. Otherwise, even getting home would be a problem. Don't ask why the healing medicine could restore the clothes. It was a horror game's traditional art. It took me some time to organize the rewards and items. If it wasn't for the fact that I still have the foundation of staying up all night in university, I would have taken the day off. Guan Shan glanced at the store, achievement, and skill bars floating in front of him. These were the 3 new functions that were unlocked after clearing the game yesterday. The achievement system was clear at a glance. After meeting certain conditions, the corresponding achievements could be unlocked and additional rewards could be obtained. The only achievement he had unlocked so far was Breakup Kitchen, which gave him a skill book, Rotten Meat Accumulation. However, the skill book was only the qualification to learn the skill. It still required skill points to unlock and learn. Guan Shan, who only had 1 skill point, had no other choice but to learn it directly. Now, one of the 4 skill bars was taken up. Skill: Rotten Meat Accumulation, Level 1. Type: Passive Cooldown. None effect. Increase health points by 10%. Increase strength by a certain amount for each monster killed. Description: Death and decay will bring you strength. Currently, the shops were basically empty. With his current level, there were only 4 items that he could exchange for. Backpack Expansion, Slots *1. Unlimited Magazine, cannot change model after equipping *1. Nuclear Flashlight *1. There was also a newbie survival package *1. The bottom right corner showed his current number of game coins, 2,300. Other than the 1,000 from the reward, there was also the 1,300 he got from exchanging Meat Nest Embryo *1 from the store. By the way, the items that were left after the simulation could be exchanged for game coins in the store. Guan Shan received 2 dropped items from the chef yesterday. Butcher's Heart 3/3 effect. Greatly increased strength when used. Lasts for 30 seconds. Takes up an accessory slot. Description: A butcher who doesn't want to be a berserker is not a good chef. Meat Nest Prototype effect. After swallowing, you will obtain Parasite. Details to be unlocked. Ability: There's a certain chance of mutation. Description: A strange life force is brewing in it. Not to mention the crappy description of the former. The effect of this thing was quite good. Although it could only be used 3 times, it was a substantial increase in strength. Guan Shan had already experienced the effect of slow recovery of health points before, and he was sure that the description of the simulator was a little different from the average person's understanding. If it said it was a substantial increase, then it must be a substantial increase. The other one, from the effect to the description, was full of unreliable, and the parasite ability had a lot of restrictions to activate. In the end, Guan Shan decided to exchange it for game coins. However, the backpack expansion slot and unlimited magazine both cost 1,000. The nuclear flashlight cost 666, which looked useless, so Guan Shan ruled it out first. The beginner survival combo pack cost 648, which included First Aid Bandage X1, Adrenaline Injection X1, Crowbar X1, and Strange Mark X1. Other than the unknown metal mark, the attributes of the items were quite good and were a must-buy. This meant that he could only choose between the backpack and a magazine. Based on my gaming experience, the expansion of backpack slots is very important, but if I don't have a magazine, the Glock in my hand will be useless. This is my only weapon. But I'm still a beginner. There's no need to rush. The total number of slots in the backpack is 10, and the items on the body don't count. If I count the items in the beginner survival combo pack, I have 5 slots left, which should be enough for the next simulation. The most important thing now is to equip myself. Guan Shan still had lingering fears of the chef's oppressive power and lethality. In the end, he decided to buy the Unlimited magazine and the Beginner's Survival Combo Pack. After installing the Unlimited magazine on the Glock 17, he only had 625 game coins left in his hand. When he got off the bus, Shen Dinghua suddenly sent him a message. Rui Xiang, Xiao Shan, hurry up. Don't be late today. The deputy editor is angry. Oh. Guan Shan was stunned. Mountain beyond the mountains. What's wrong? Rui Xiang. Last night, there was a gas pipe explosion at SX Snack. He said that we couldn't get the first-hand materials even though we were so close, so we could only sell the leftovers. We couldn't get the hot spot. Speaking of which, Xiao Shan, did you go there last night? Mountain beyond the mountains. Yeah, I went the wrong way. Guan Shan said that it was a gas explosion, but he didn't know if it was a coincidence or a setup by the simulator. Anyway, there was no risk of dying for now. Rui Xiang, good thing you went the wrong way, or else you would have gotten hurt. Mountain beyond the mountains. Take care of me. JPG Guanshan looked at Shen Dinghua's. Take care of me. JPG messaged and smiled. He looked up at the building in front of him that reflected the sunlight. The 8th floor of the building was the office floor of the Hangzhou Evening News. Chapter 7. The 7th and 8th chapters may be a bit cliché, but because it has to do with the subsequent plot, it's not easy to change, so it can be skipped. The workplace plot basically doesn't account for much. The Hangzhou Evening News was a local newspaper that wasn't very famous. In other words, in recent years, the paper media had declined. Other than the more famous newspapers, most of them were not very famous. The office space of the newspaper was not big, and there weren't many messy departments. Other than the news department where ordinary reporters like Wan Shan worked, there was the editorial department, the typesetting room, the newsroom, the chief editor's office, and the independent offices of several leaders. There was also a temporary dormitory that was not usually used. Guan Shan walked out of the elevator that ran through the center of the building and turned right from the reception area. He passed by the washroom, and on the left was the big office that belonged to the news department. As soon as Guan Shan walked to the door, he heard Deputy Chief Editor Jiang Sai's loud voice. Tell me, the fire scene was less than 100 meters away from the newspaper, but our sources were from the public hotline and other media. We didn't have any first-hand information, and it was all leftovers. Isn't that embarrassing? Huh? The title of Deputy Chief Editor sounded quite intimidating, but the Hangzhou Evening News had a total of 3 Deputy Chief Editors, and Jiang Sai was only one of them. In addition, there was also a Chief Editor who was also the president. This made up the entire leadership. Under normal circumstances, the 3 Deputy Chief Editors took turns to work in the office once a week. This week, it was Jiang Sai's turn. Although Guan Shan had only worked at the newspaper for half a year, he roughly understood the temperament of the 3 Deputy Chief Editors. Generally speaking, the other 2 didn't usually do much. They would only come out to nag when there was a big issue. Only Jiang Sai liked to do 2 things. One was to lecture, and the other was to make an example. I'm already lecturing. I'm afraid the rest will be made an example. Guan Shan silently thought to himself that this was not good, and he opened the door. Creak! The sound of the metal frame of the frosted glass door rubbing against each other attracted everyone's attention in the office. Guan Shan, who pushed open the door and walked in, immediately attracted everyone's attention. More than 10 pairs of eyes looked over in unison in silence. The pressure they gave off was no less than that of the chef, who was charging over like a mountain of meat. Shen Dinghua was among them. The girl was hiding at a desk in the corner. She was hugging her head and secretly looking over. Her eyes revealed a trace of worry. Guan Shan smiled at her, then turned to face Jiang Sai and bowed slightly, as if nothing had happened. Hello, Mr. Jiang. Guan Shan had learned how to address Jiang Sai from a few senior reporters. It was said that Jiang Sai liked to be called that. Jiang Sai was in his 40s. Dressed in a suit and leather shoes, he looked like a scholar. He wore gold-rimmed glasses, and his hair was a mixture of black and white, which was combed meticulously. When he stared at her, she felt like she had been caught doing something bad in high school. Guan Shan turned to greet the director of the news department, Peng Fei, who was standing on the other side. Peng Fei was a chubby middle-aged man. He looked very honest. At this moment, he was winking at Guan Shan, hinting that the situation was not good. With this atmosphere, even a blind person would know that the situation was not good. He speechlessly turned and walked to his desk, praying that he could get away with it. Unfortunately, things did not go as he wished. "Stop right there." Jiang Xian spoke in a deep voice and knocked on the desk in front of him. "Guanshan, I saw yesterday's check-in record. You were the last to leave, right?" "Sure enough, it has started." Guanshan cursed in his heart. He was extremely tired and impatient. He sighed in his heart and nodded. "That's me. I left yesterday after editing 2 pages of the e-newspaper. Is there a problem, Mr. Jiang?" Jiang Xian's face suddenly darkened. "What problem? Do you know about the fire at SX snack shop yesterday?" Guanshan naturally nodded. Before he could say anything, Jiang Xian continued. "According to the police report, the fire happened around 1 o'clock. You left at 12:30. I remember that you were heading home in the same direction, but you couldn't even provide a single clue. Where is your ability as a reporter?" His words were completely unreasonable. He was just venting his anger. Guanshan just happened to be in the line of fire. Jiang Xian used this as a pretext to make a fuss. If it were any other time, Guanshan would definitely go along with him and just deal with him with a series of uns and ahs. But today was different. Last night's thrilling life and death situation created fear, anger, and nervousness that still lingered in Guanshan's mind. Although those were just simulated images, they were almost the same as reality. No normal person would be able to stay calm after experiencing that. Moreover, he almost didn't sleep the whole night and woke up early in the morning to go to work. At this moment, he was being scolded for no reason. Guanshan's emotions surged, but he still suppressed his anger. "Mr. Jiang, you can't not tell the truth, right? There's still half an hour between 12:30 and 1 o'clock. SX Snack Shop is only 500 meters away from the news agency. Even if I walked slowly, I wouldn't be able to see the shop in half an hour. How could I provide any clues?" Jiang Xian didn't expect that a young reporter who had only been here for half a year would dare to refute him. But he was worried that this group of wily old foxes wouldn't be able to make a fart out of them. This kid was a good source of material. Jiang Xian sneered in his heart. "Oh, you can't see the shop, but you can at least see the smoke, right? You can't see the smoke, but you can at least hear the sirens, right? You don't pay attention to anything when there's a situation. I think you either don't have any journalistic qualities, or you're too lazy." He pointed at Guanshan with a sullen face. "I think people like you don't have enough professional skills, but you lack enthusiasm. You can't improve the news agency at all. What's the point of keeping you? Looking for trouble, twisting the truth." Even if Guanshan could tolerate it, Shun Dinghua couldn't. She stood up angrily. "Deputy Chief Editor Jiang, Guanshan stayed so late last night because he was working on the electronic version. He finished all the manuscripts and was the last to leave. In your eyes, does that mean he has no professional skills and no enthusiasm?" Shin Dinghua said word by word. "Are you trying to deny the meaning of an employee's hard work?" Jiang Xian didn't comment. "The work is finished, but it doesn't mean it's done. Why don't you send the documents to me later and let me see how it's done?" He turned his head and looked at Guanshan with a condescending and calm expression. It was obvious that he was the boss. Wasn't it up to him to decide whether the manuscript was good or not? His fists had hardened. Guanshan was so angry that he almost laughed. He took a deep breath and walked in front of Jiang Xian. He looked him in the eye and said, "There's no need, Chief Jiang. Since you think the reporter's ability lies in those few photos, then what if I can get them?" He stared at him. "If I can get the photos of the fire scene, what will you say?" "What do you mean by what I say? Do I still have to listen to you?" "I don't care whether you can get the photos or not. Today, either you bow down or I fire you." Jiang Xian's first reaction was to retort. After all, he was here to establish his authority, not to ask for the photos. But before he could say anything, he suddenly felt someone touch him from behind. "Ah!" Jiang Xian screamed in horror, because he was leaning against his desk. There was absolutely no one behind him. He turned around abruptly. There was only a desk in front of him, but the touch on his back was so clear. It was cold and even seemed to be wet. Jiang Xian braced himself and touched his back. It was really wet. Could it be? No, it must be the ceiling leaking. Jiang Xian's eyelids twitched. His hands trembled a little, but the others didn't know. They looked at him blankly. Why did he look like he was having a cramp? Peng Fei hesitated. What's wrong? Why don't? Jiang Xian came to his senses. Although he was still in shock, he couldn't lose his composure. He slammed the table and glared at Guan Shan. What do you mean what you say? If you get it, then I'll consider you capable. The people below who had been listening attentively were stunned. Did this Jiang Xian have a change of heart today? Just a moment ago, he looked like he was going to play someone to death. Why did he suddenly say, consider you capable? Knock, knock. Suddenly, there was a crisp knock on the door. What's so noisy? A gentle yet dignified voice sounded. Everyone looked in the direction of the sound. A woman in a beige slim-fit dress was standing by the door. Her long, black hair was tied up behind her head. Her elegant, classic, and beautiful face was shining in the morning light. Her calves under her skirt were slender and beautiful, and could be said to be well-proportioned. Peng Fei hurried over. Hello, President. The person who came was the editor-in-chief and president of Hangzhou Evening News, Li Jing. Chapter 8. Seeing that even the president was alarmed, the director of the news department, Peng Fei, hurriedly stepped forward and explained, It's nothing. It's about the fire last night. Brother Jiang is asking if we have first-hand material. He was obviously trying to smooth things over for Guan Shan. He changed the nature of the matter from questioning one person to questioning everyone. In this case, if Li Jing did not pursue the matter would have been determined to be the latter. No matter how good Jiang Xian was at arguing, he did not dare to argue with the president when he was in the wrong. He could only swallow it and let it go. This matter was considered to be over. Although Director Peng did not say a word earlier, he was actually much more slippery than Jiang Xian. Unfortunately, Li Jing didn't intend to accept this explanation. She looked around and paused for a few seconds on Shun Dinghua, who was standing angrily, as well as Guan Shan and Jiang Xian, who were still at loggerheads with each other. He had a rough idea of what had happened. There's no need to call him up and ask him about such a small matter, right? Li Jing walked over and looked at Jiang Xian. Her high heels tapped on the ground, and her calm eyes carried an invisible pressure. Jiang Xian immediately put on a businesslike appearance and said with a fake smile, I'm just educating some young people who don't want to make progress. They're not serious and don't do things well. They even talk back when I say a few words. How can this kind of person work well? Although he had inexplicably weakened his momentum just now, he absolutely did not believe that Guan Shan could produce any real photos. If there was first-hand material, those people who chased after popularity like wild dogs fighting for food would have been released long ago. There was no movement now, which meant that there were either no witnesses last night or the photos were suppressed. He knew very well that if that was not the case, how could he use it as a pretext to make a fuss? As long as this was confirmed, he did not believe that Guan Shan could overturn the situation. Could it be that he could conjure up material out of thin air? Since they had already shed all pretense of cordiality, Guan Shan was too lazy to deal with this guy. He straightened his body and said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, Director Peng is the one who is qualified to judge whether or not I work seriously and how well I do. And you? Forgive me for being blunt, but you usually just drink tea in the office and don't even turn on your computer. I don't think you can see how I work, right? Jiang Xian flew into a rage when he heard that. How dare you mock me? Guan Shan looked at him strangely. No. You've misunderstood. Jiang Xian thought that Guan Shan was going to give in. Just as his expression eased a little, he heard Guan Shan say again, I'm just telling the truth. How is that sarcasm? He smacked his lips and sighed. Sometimes, I really feel that you're quite amazing. You can't be seen or found anywhere, but you're mysterious and have a special sense of existence. Guan Shan said tactfully, I don't know if you feel like a fart. Everyone sitting at their desks suddenly lay down one by one. Their shoulders trembled violently, and there was a burst of laughter as if they were dubbing. Shen Dinghua laughed out loud. The moment she saw Guan Shan's attitude change, she no longer had any worries in her heart. Xiao Shan always had his own ideas. Once he wanted to do something, he would definitely think of the consequences and countermeasures. At this time, she only needed to support and wait. Jiang Xian had never been scolded in public like this before. He was so angry that his nose was crooked. His face was livid as he pointed at Guanshan. He turned his head and angrily complained to Li Jing. "President, look, look, look. What kind of attitude is this? He's starting to insult his boss. I don't know what will happen in the future. This kind of person shouldn't be kept." Guanshan pulled the corner of his mouth and chuckled. "Insult? Even if you don't understand and don't know the quality of my work, I've never been absent from work. Even if I work until midnight, I'll definitely complete the task on the same day. These things can be known immediately if you check the records. But when it comes to you, I've become a lazy, has no business ability, doesn't work seriously, and can't do a reliable job trash." His eyes were almost burning with anger. "Who's the one insulting me?" Seeing that the two were about to quarrel again, Peng Fei's forehead was covered in sweat. He looked left and right and fell helpless. At this point, there was no way to persuade them. Alas, Peng Fei sighed in his heart. He was very optimistic about Guanshan. This young man was hardworking and had principles. In the past, he also knew the principle of forbearance. But today, he didn't know what was wrong with him. He actually looked like he could give up his future. At this point, he could only hope for the president's attitude. Knock, knock, knock. As expected, Li Jing made a move. She knocked on the desk with her slender fingers and said sternly, "Quiet. Where do you think this is?" Jiang Xian was so angry at Guanshan that his lungs were about to explode. He pointed at the ladder and was about to yell at him, but Li Jing stopped him. He held his breath and almost choked to death. His eyes were wide open. Of all times to open his mouth, he chose this moment. That fellow had already finished speaking, but he couldn't refute. He could only snort coldly and put down his finger that was pointing at Guanshan. In fact, Li Jing had already understood the general situation after watching the two of them exchange a few words. Li Jing was very clear about Jiang Xian's character and ability. This guy was a middle-aged playboy. The reason why he was allowed to become the deputy managing editor of the newspaper was mainly because of his old father, who had some status in the newspaper industry. In addition to the friendship between the elders, Li Jing gave him a position. Today's incident was most likely caused by Jiang Xian looking for trouble. At this moment, she unexpectedly looked at Guanshan a few more times. This young reporter, who had just been promoted from an intern to a full-time employee, was quite brave. However, Jiang Xian's behavior was really too much. He really needed a reason to restrain himself. Guanshan might be a good choice, but the premise was that he had the ability. Li Jing thought for a moment and looked at Guanshan. "You just said that you can get photos of the fire scene?" Guanshan nodded. Jiang Xian's heart skipped a beat. This meant that she wanted to protect Guanshan. If this brat was saved today, wouldn't he lose all of his face? Jiang Xian couldn't be bothered to be angry. He quickly said, "He's just talking nonsense. Those media outlets don't have any news. How can a young reporter have the ability?" Li Jing's beautiful eyes narrowed, and she scolded him. "As media people, we have to speak with facts. How do you know that he doesn't have the ability?" These words were exactly the same as Guanshan's mockery of him. But this time, he was facing his own boss. What else could Jiang Xian say? He could only shut his mouth with a dark face. Li Jing looked at Guanshan and said, "For the recent Fire Prevention Publicity Day, I'm going to do a special issue on fire safety. If you can really get the photos, add them to the recent fire examples. You and Peng Fei will be in charge of the content for the special issue." She narrowed her eyes, and her gaze was sharp. "But if you talk nonsense," Guanshan glanced at Jiang Xian and said seriously, "then I'll resign myself." "Okay." Li Jing nodded with satisfaction. "The news is time-sensitive. I'll only give you 1 day. This matter could be considered as settled." Jiang Xian was anxious when he heard that Li Jing wanted to let Guanshan be in charge of the special issue. But then he thought about it. Guanshan couldn't get the photos at all. He was seeking his own death this time. It's settled. Thinking of this, Jiang Xian wasn't anxious anymore. He looked around, snorted, and went back to his office to continue drinking tea. When he thought of Guanshan being exposed and resigning in a fluster, he felt that the tea was sweeter. "It's this ceiling. I need to find someone to fix it." Chapter 9. After Jiang Xian and Li Jing left, Peng Fei, who was still in shock, called Guan Shan to his office and scolded him. In short, he scolded him for being so reckless today and for not taking his future as a joke. Guan Shan was recruited by Peng Fei. Peng Fei's appreciation and protection of Guan Shan was of course very clear to Guan Shan. Although he wasn't particularly impulsive today and was even very confident, Peng Fei didn't know that he had the photos in his hands. Guan Shan could only respond with grunts. Peng Fei looked at his perfunctory look and patted him on the shoulder. I know you young people have your own ideas, but the situation is beyond your control. You may have had a good time today, but what about after? Jiang Xian is still the deputy chief editor and your boss. You can deal with him once, but can you deal with him 100 times or even 1,000 times? Let's not talk about after. How you plan to deal with the current situation? Peng Fei's face was serious. Where are you going to get the photos in one day? Playing tricks won't work. Once you're caught, your reputation will be ruined. Of course, he was referring to Photoshop the photos. Guan Shan's mouth twitched. Do I look like that kind of person to you? Peng Fei looked at him carefully and shook his head in disappointment. He said sadly, if only you were that kind of person. Otherwise, why would you go against Jiang Xian? Please forgive me. Guan Shan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I'll tell you the truth. I have a friend who was nearby when the fire happened. He took a photo of the scene and sent it to me this morning. He simply showed the photo on his phone to Peng Fei and shrugged. I was going to upload it to the manuscript library, but who knew that I would be stopped by Mr. Jiang the moment I arrived? Peng Fei was stunned and dumbfounded. He took the phone and looked left and right. Based on his years of experience, he was sure that the photo wasn't photoshopped. Moreover, the angle was excellent. It happened to be when the fire was at its fiercest, and the flickering signboard was particularly clear against the light of the fire. Your friend is quite good at filming. Peng Fei squeezed out this sentence after a long time. He returned the phone to Guan Shan and could not help but give him a thumbs up. You're awesome. You're using this photo to provoke him. He had a strange look in his eyes. I really thought you were an honest kid. I didn't expect you to have learned how to fish. Guan Shan shrugged. You can't blame me for this. You saw it yourself. Mr. Jiang didn't give me any chance to speak. All right. Peng Fei waved his hand to chase him away and said unhappily, I was worried about you and was prepared to recommend you to the TV station. In the end, I should be worried about whether Jiang Xian would die of anger because of this. He returned to his usual smiling self and exhorted, do a good job on the special edition this time. The president is planning to deal with Jiang Xian. You're probably the #1 vanguard in her heart. Don't waste this opportunity. Understood. Guan Shan closed the door to the director's office. Next door was Jiang Xian's office. The guy was still leisurely making tea, looking calm and composed. Guan Shan shook his head and looked away with amusement. He returned to the news department. As soon as he sat down, a message popped up on his phone. Rui Xiang. Xiao Shan, how are you? Are you okay? He turned his head to take a look. Sure enough, he saw a small head sneakily poking its head out to look in his direction. Shan Wai Qing Shan. Something big. Guan Shan pretended to reply as he turned on his computer and sent the photo to Li Jing's QQ number on his list. Li Jing, who always replied instantly at work, took a while to receive the photo. She then asked about the origin of the photo. Guan Shan used the same excuse to evade her. Rui Xiang, what's wrong? Is it that serious? Did Director Peng scold you? Or is there really no photo? If it doesn't work, I'll ask my dad to mediate. Guan Shan glanced at Shen Dinghua, who was staring at her phone with a tense face. She looked nervous. Shan Wai Qing Shan. Neither. I'm hungry. Rui Xiang. Sigh, asterisk. Sigh bad guy. Guan Shan chatted happily. Lu Ping, who was sitting in front of him, couldn't help but move his chair back. He looked up and whispered, Hey, what did Director Peng say to you? Bro, you're awesome. If I could scold that guy to his face, it would be worth it even if I quit. But you're too impulsive. Where are you going to find a photo in such a short time? Lu Ping and Guan Shan were recruited in the same batch. They usually interacted with each other, so their relationship was pretty good. As soon as he spoke, Although the people around him seemed to be working seriously, they all pricked up their ears to listen. After all, there were reporters here, so it was natural for them to be gossipy. Seeing this guy, who is usually talkative, start to chatter, Guan Shan was speechless. Director Peng didn't say anything. Go back to work. I've already taken care of the photo. Lu Ping was stunned and quickly asked, Really? That's impossible. You just sat down. Where did the photo come from? Hey, don't be silent. Tell me what's going on. However, no matter how curious he was, Guan Shan ignored him and focused on chatting with Li Jing on QQ about the firefighting section. Lu Ping's eyes widened. He was really about to suffocate to death. But it was working hours now, so he couldn't slack off too obviously. He could only reluctantly go back to work with a stomach full of questions. Other people who heard this naturally didn't believe it. Dai Yi, who was in the back row, curled his lips and snorted in his heart. He was sure that Guan Shan was making a final struggle. He said this just to save some face, pretending to be relaxed. Hee. They were all in the same batch, but Guan Shan was especially valued by Peng Fei. But Dai felt that he was much better than this guy. It was nothing more than working overtime to show off to his boss. He couldn't wait for Guan Shan to be fired so that his talent could be seen. But I probably won't be able to see him tomorrow, right? Haha, he deserves it. He actually dared to talk back to his boss. What a stubborn person who lost his job. Photo, if you can really get it, I'll change my surname to yours. Dai thought gloatingly. He deliberately coughed twice to cover the smile on his face. For the whole day, the people in the office were secretly observing Guan Shan to see what he would do. After all, everyone was curious about what would happen to this brave warrior who dared to face blood. But Guan Shan didn't run around, nor did he type quickly. He didn't even frown. He worked as usual, eating with Shan Dinghua before working. There was no sense of urgency at all. He even ate an extra bowl of rice. When it was time to get off work, Jiang Xian, who had already heard that Guan Shan didn't do anything the whole day, walked into the office proudly. When he saw Guan Shan packing his things, he immediately smiled and said, Isn't this our resourceful reporter Guan Shan? Are you ready to leave? Why are you packing your things? Don't you have good eyesight? Come and help me. Since the two of them had already shed all pretense of cordiality, Jiang Xian no longer put on an act. This was called sarcasm. Guan Shan's expression was normal. Yes, I'm ready to leave. I don't have work today, so I want to go home early. The people around him didn't know what to feel. Usually, Guan Shan didn't have work to do. He was really going to resign. The brave warrior couldn't defeat the evil dragon in the end. Jiang Xian was relieved. Dai Yi, who was behind him, heard and pretended to run over to help Guan Shan pack his things. He sighed and said, We've only worked together for half a year. I didn't expect you to leave. I really don't want to. Hey, you don't have to do it. I still need to use it tomorrow. Guan Shan reached out to stop Dai Yi from touching his documents. He was puzzled. I'm just getting off work. It's not like I'm not coming back. What are you talking about? Dai Yi was stunned. Jiang Xian was also stunned. The latter immediately sneered. You made a military order in front of the president. If you don't get the photos today, you'll resign. Are you going to go back on your word? Guan Shan spread his hands. That's right, so I sent the photos to the president this morning. What? Everyone was completely stunned. Jiang Xian didn't believe it and said sternly, Where are the photos? Don't think you can fool me with that. Wait until the fire protection section comes out. Why don't you take a look at it when you have time? I have to get off work now. Oh, the president is really a good person. Seeing that I usually work seriously, when I handed over the fire protection section, he specially allowed me to not do anything else and go home early. Guan Shan sighed with a sincere face. He patted Dai Yi on the shoulder and picked up his bag. He said sincerely, Thank you for helping me tidy up. Guan Shan left. Dai Yi stood there awkwardly. When he thought about how seriously he had helped Guan Shan tidy up his things, he felt his vision turn black. He said, I'm leaving first, and ran away. Jiang Xian was happily fantasizing about Guan Shan's resignation, but now he was embarrassed. It had been sent in the morning. In the morning, it turned out that while he was intoxicated, the matter had already been over. Guan Shan was waiting for him to come to his door. In the end, He really ran over and was smacked twice, feeling complacent. "Shut down!" Jiang Xian gritted his teeth and roared in his heart. He slammed the door and left angrily. He swore that if he didn't make this guy unable to survive in the newspaper industry, his name wouldn't be Jiang Xian. Jiang Xian walked out of the news department aggressively. Just as he was venting in his heart, he suddenly felt something tripping him. "Ah!" Jiang Xian screamed and fell flat on his face. With a bang, his chin hit the marble floor hard. Coupled with his ferocious expression just now, his teeth hit the floor, and his bottom teeth hit the floor again. Two of his front teeth immediately flew out. The sharp pain was accompanied by a strong tremor. It was like a steel needle piercing through his toes. Jiang Xian's eyes rolled back and tears burst out. He fell on his back and screamed in pain. "Ah!" The tragic scene was enough to make a Fujoshi shout. "He hit it, he hit it. Mr. Zhang's floor group is so sweet." The staff who heard the commotion quickly ran over to help him. "Mr. Jiang, are you okay?" Jiang Xian was in so much pain that he broke out in cold sweat. He trembled and said incoherently, "Hospital! Hospital! Quickly send me to the hospital." He still had the energy to curse. "Find someone to fix this broken floor tomorrow. Where did such a big thing come from to trip my feet?" The staff was stunned. "No, this floor is flat. Look, there are no bumps at all." Jiang Xian was so angry that he pointed to the floor. "There are no bumps at all. Isn't this?" He suddenly froze. The floor was indeed smooth and flat, but there was a pair of women's feet in his line of sight. Red high heels, slender ankles, abnormally white skin, and some blue veins. When he looked up, it was actually an unfamiliar woman in white. Jiang Xian's heart skipped a beat. He said fiercely, "Who are you?" The woman didn't say anything and just stared at him. The staff next to him looked around blankly. "There's no one here, Mr. Jiang. I'm Little Wang from the editorial department. Let me send you to the hospital quickly." He cursed in his heart. With this fall, he was afraid that President Zhang's head would also be concussed. He even started to speak nonsense. Not only would he have to go to the dental department, but he would also have to go to the neurology department. Jiang Xian felt a chill down his spine and his scalp numb. He pulled the staff and pointed at the woman with trembling fingers. "Isn't that her? Didn't you see her? Don't joke with me." Little Wang was dumbfounded. In his eyes, there was nothing here, only a slightly dim corridor. However, Jiang Xian's words made the corridor that he was used to seeing become dark and terrifying. He swallowed. "Don't scare me. There's really no one here." Jiang Xian was anxious. "There. It was right there. Did you see her?" Little Wang was about to cry. "No, there's really no one here." At this moment, the woman in white moved. She slowly walked towards Jiang Xian and stretched out her hand as if to grab him. Jiang Xian was so scared that he shouted, "Back off. No, don't come over." Little Wang felt as if all the blood in his body was flowing backward. He didn't care if Jiang Xian was injured or if he had encountered a ghost. He dragged him back. However, Jiang Xian was so scared that his legs went weak. He had fallen so hard just now that he couldn't get up at all. He grabbed at Little Wang's clothes like a drowning man grabbing at straws, making it impossible for the latter to break free. As the two of them pulled and pulled, Jiang Xian saw the woman in white's hand getting closer and closer. On her pale face were a pair of dark eyes and a strange smile. He tried his best to retreat, but he couldn't pull away. Jiang Xian placed his only hope on Little Wang. But even at this moment, the employee still didn't seem to see the woman and was only focused on fighting with him. Finally, when the finger was about to touch Jiang Xian, he completely broke down. "Ah, ghost! Ghost! There's a ghost! Help!" Jiang Xian shouted crazily and waved his hands. Because he had just lost 2 front teeth, the fear that came from the bottom of his heart made him unable to control his facial expression. Tears and saliva flowed down his face as he almost crawled back. Give up. No one can see me at all." The woman blinked, straightened up, and kicked Jiang Xian's leg. It felt exactly the same as the one who tripped him. Jiang Xian finally couldn't take the shock. His vision turned black and he fainted. Chapter 10. How can there be such a person? She doesn't know anything, but she only knows how to make things difficult for others. The female ghost, in red high heels and white clothes, stopped smiling and angrily spat at Jiang Xin, who had fainted on the ground. After spitting, she hurriedly left the crime scene with a guilty conscience and followed Guan Shan's back. The observation mission also includes stabilizing the target's emotions. What I did was not against the rules. It was part of the mission. The female ghost muttered to herself and swaggered past Little Wang. Little Wang was only concerned with calling the emergency number in a panic, as if he did not see her at all. The supernatural ability of no sense of presence was an unfathomable superdimensional power for ordinary people. As long as she did not interfere with them greatly, such as tripping Jiang Xian, no one would be able to notice her existence. But similarly, if she interfered with someone alone, it would create a situation where only that person could see her. This ability was miraculous, whether it was for spies or interrogations. That's right, the so-called female ghost was naturally Shuman Lin, who was ordered to secretly observe Guan Shan. Last night, she fled the scene in shock and returned to the Chaotic Research Institute with the Taiyan Formation Yohao group, the superior team of the third team, to clean up the mess. In a way, Jiang Xian was indeed very intuitive. It was not that no one took photos of the SX snack fire last night, but they were all erased by someone. After all, the real cause of this so-called accident was not actually a gas explosion. It was the Taiyan Formation's last resort for this bloody case, caused by a psychic. It was just that the movement was a little bigger. The logistics department had to work together with the operation, and they had to eliminate all possible hidden dangers nearby one by one. Not only were the photos deleted, but the memories of the people involved were also deleted. That was why there was such a strange situation where no news media got first-hand information about a serious fire that happened in the public eye. No, it should be said that the only person who got it now was the reporter named Guan Shan. Time, 22:06. Coordinates, 8th floor of Wanji Building. Reporting by Shuman Lin. The observation mission is about to end. The target is heading to the elevator. It is predicted that he will board the 22:15 bus. Please be prepared. In summary, for the entire day today, other than handing over the photos to the president of the newspaper, the target did not do anything out of the ordinary. Shuman Lin quickened her pace and closely followed Guan Shan into the elevator. She leaned against the corner and added, "Minter Xia, would you like me to recycle the photos?" While reporting through a special earpiece, she carefully glanced at Guan Shan. Guan Shan was completely unaware that a living person was standing less than a meter away from him. He even played with his phone in the elevator out of boredom. Obviously, Guan Shan did not notice her existence, even though Shuman Lin had been observing him closely for the whole day. Shuman Lin glanced at Guan Shan's phone interface. He was chatting with Shan Dinghua again. Again, throughout the day, her biggest gain from observing Mount Guan was the large amount of dog food she had seen. Other than working hours, this person basically chatted with Shan Dinghua about some domestic topics. They were like an old couple. From the information, these two had been in the same class from kindergarten to high school. They could be said to be the standard childhood sweethearts. During high school, Guan Shan took a leave of absence for half a year because of his family. During this time, Shan Dinghua had been taking care of him. Later, when they were in college, because Guan Shan decided to be a reporter, Shan Dinghua actually enrolled in photography without hesitation. It was simply unreasonable for them not to get married. Shuman Lin couldn't help but mutter, "Their relationship is so good." But obviously, they lived next door and they didn't work overtime today. Why don't they go back together? Thinking of this, she was stunned again. These two, it seemed that even when they were not working, they only used their phones. They rarely talked face to face, and there was no intimate behavior. If one didn't know about their past, one would think that they were just ordinary acquaintances. Shuman Lin shook her head and suppressed her curiosity. Forget it. Maybe it's just a strange habit. The mission is more important. After last night's incident, the higher-ups didn't pursue their mistakes too much, because this incident was ultimately due to the lack of information in the intelligence department. Only then did Lin Shuman realize that the things that Zhao Hong and Fong Minmin were involved and seemed to be more than what they understood. Schumann Lin's level was not enough to know the specifics, but it should be related to the recently emerged psychic organization Killer Bee. However, these things would be dealt with by the higher-ups. After a night of discussion, she was given a new task. That was to observe the mysterious person who suddenly appeared last night, Guan Shan. After all, she was the only person who had close contact with Guan Shan at that time without being killed by him. Moreover, after watching the video recorded by Schumann Lin's earpiece, the higher-ups confirmed that her ability was effective against Guan Shan. Therefore, she was the most suitable person for this task. Schumann Lin's main task was to record Guan Shan's behavior and feed it back to the logistics department so that they could evaluate his personality and the danger of his ability. However, Guan Shan acted like an ordinary person, but this was precisely the most unusual thing about him. Because this young man, called Guan Shan in front of her, was not an ordinary person at all. Which ordinary person could easily kill 2 D-class paranormals with just one gun? D-class was not the lowest level among the psychics. According to the international grading standards, psychics were divided into 7 levels: F, E, D, C, B, A, and S based on the energy level they contained. The energy level needed to be measured with a special instrument, which was used to represent the general strength of a psychic. Generally speaking, the higher the energy level, the stronger the psychic. Being able to reach D-class meant that the psychic had a certain degree of destructive power and threat. If left alone, it would cause great harm to society. A person who could kill 2 D-class psychics in a head-on confrontation must be at least a D-class psychic, not to mention that Guan Shan had already shown some abnormalities at that time. As long as the energy level detector was used at a close distance, even an F-class psychic would have a reaction. This was also one of Schumann Lin's tasks. However, Guan Shan's body did not show any energy level reaction at all. If Schumann Lin did not look at herself in the mirror, she would have suspected that the energy level detector given by the logistics department was broken. Could it be because of his ability? But shouldn't he have a fighting ability? He did not show any camouflage ability. While Schumann Lin was guessing in her heart, ding! The elevator door opened. Schumann Lin immediately followed Guan Shan out of the building and went to the bus stop. A reply came from the earpiece. Yohao Group's team guide, Xiao Lei's voice sounded. No need. That photo is not dangerous. Xiao Lei said, You did well, but the target's personality analysis needs are a bit complicated. Continue the observation tomorrow. The handover staff is already waiting on the bus. You can get off work now. Schumann Lin saw the lights of the bus coming in the distance and breathed a sigh of relief. In her field of vision, Guan Shan's side profile was cut by the lights and the night sky. There was only a little light in his dark eyes. She could not help but shiver as she remembered how his face was covered in blood last night. Hurry up and leave. She felt that she would be cut in half at any time if she stayed with this lunatic for one more second. Schumann Lin waited for the bus to open the door. She exchanged glances with the handover staff who had already sat down and communicated with them through the earpiece. Today's task was considered complete. She watched the bus leave and was about to take off her earpiece. Xiao Lei suddenly connected to the channel. All right, next time, don't do unnecessary actions outside of the mission. The psychologist in the logistics department is complaining. Schumann Lin was stunned. Huh? Xiao Lei said earnestly. She gave Jiang Xian a psychological hint in advance this morning to amplify his emotions and target Guan Shan. She wanted to observe how Guan Shan would react. After all, a person will only show their true side when they are angry. That means, that's right. This is also part of the plan. Xiao Lei sighed helplessly. Sigh, now it's great. Jiang Xian was directly sent to the hospital by you. It won't be easy to find a suitable and easy target to stimulate the target's emotions. Schumann Lin's face turned red. She said in an embarrassed voice, Yes, I won't do it again. Xiao Lei chuckled and said, It's okay. I just want to remind you that you have observed enough today. When the sound in the earpiece stopped, Schumann Lin stood in the cold wind in a daze. After a while, she slowly squatted down and hugged her head. She covered herself with all her strength, desperately trying to shrink herself. She really wanted to be in S-class with no sense of presence. Ah, what have I done? My boss and colleagues found out that I was pretending to be mysterious and did such an idiotic thing. I'm dead. I'm already dead. I want to buy a train ticket. Chapter 11. On the bus, the person who was dealing with Schumann Lin was called He Jiang. He was a criminal ability user who had been recruited. He was now a member of the 4th team of the Te and Formation Yohao group. He still had a special tracking device on him. As a D-level physical ability user, He Jiang's ability was high-speed regeneration. This ability was more or less available to all physical ability users, but He Jiang specialized in it. His combat ability was not strong, but unless he received an irreversible fatal injury, escaping was not a problem. The higher-ups sent me, most likely because they think the target is very dangerous and may cause sacrifice. He Jiang was well aware of this. With his ability and his previous identity, he was the perfect cannon fodder. But He Jiang glanced at Guan Shan, who was getting on the bus. The latter was taking out his phone to pay. No matter how he looked at it, it was very ordinary. He heard that even the energy level detector did not detect it. Was this guy really dangerous? Beep. Guan Shan took back his phone and glanced at the seats at the back of the bus. This was the last bus at this hour. Normally, there wouldn't be many passengers on the bus. At this moment, except for a young man sitting in the middle by the window, there was only Guan Shan who had just gotten on the bus. The bus started and left the bus stop. The bright bus was empty. The rings swayed left and right with the shaking of the bus. The streetlights outside the window were like shooting stars in the night sky. Guan Shan walked to the back seat in the shaking bus. He was used to sitting in the back. This way, he could avoid most disputes and take the opportunity to observe all kinds of people on the bus. Perhaps he would be able to come across some material. The higher seats in the back could also provide a good shooting position. Guan Shan sat down. The first thing he did was to report his schedule to Shindinghua. Mountain beyond the mountains, on the bus. Rui Xiong, yay. Calculating the time, we can see Xiao Shan in 20 minutes. I ordered pizza and Coke. My parents are not here today. How about coming to my house to play games? Mountain beyond the mountains, you eat so much every night. Be careful not to get fat. Rui Xiong, I won't. Super fierce. JPG, Mountain beyond the mountains. Why are there so many dishes tonight? Did something good happen? Rui Xiong, yes. Qing Shan beyond the mountains. What? Rui Xiong. Xiao Shan defeated Jiang Xian and got the chance to be a writer. I'm one step closer to my dream. I'm very happy. Asterisk caret caret asterisk. Guan Shan couldn't help but soften his gaze. From between the lines, it seemed that he could see Shan Dinghua's sly expression. Shan Wai Qing Shan. So this is to celebrate the victory? Rui Xiong, hum. Hands on waist. JPG, Shan Wai Qing Shan. Thank you for speaking up for me today. I'll treat you next time. Rui Xiong, don't treat me. I want Xiao Shan to cook for me. Trying to act coquettish. JPG, Shan Wai Qing Shan. Okay. Shindinghua then shared about the stray cats she saw on the road. Guan Shan commented on how cute it was, then turned to talk about the current ecology of stray cats. Then, the topic gradually deviated, and no one knew where it went. Occasionally, he raised his head to look at the night view outside the window, feeling peaceful in his heart. Guan Shan didn't know when it started, but he always kept a very subtle distance between him and Shun Dinghua. They were obviously very close emotionally, but they would never cross that line in life. Platonic spiritual love? Not really. Guan Shan was sure that he didn't have that kind of worldly desire for Shindinghua. So, if he had to describe it, instead, they were like two wild beasts eyeing each other covetously. Unless they allowed each other, they would never step into each other's territory. Guan Shan suddenly shook his head in amusement, feeling that his description was a bit ridiculous. Shindinghua. How could it be a wild beast? Well, if it was, then it must be a clingy little orange cat. Guan Shan chatted with Shun Dinghua to pass the time, and, out of habit, he observed the only other passenger. It was a very ordinary-looking young man in his 20s. He was wearing headphones, a long-sleeved jacket, and sweatpants. It was not rare to see him in this season of early autumn. The only thing that was eye-catching was that he was wearing a black neck ring. However, before Guan Shan got on the bus, he noticed that he was looking at the seat next to Guan Shan through the window. Guan Shan was very confident in his observation skills. It was not a casual glance, but a focused look, as if he was communicating with someone. However, at the bus stop, only Guan Shan was waiting for the bus. Maybe there was something worth paying attention to there, like a billboard or a passing kitten. Guan Shan guessed out of boredom. At this time, the bus's automatic announcement sounded. Welcome to bus number 514. The bus is starting. Please sit tight. The next stop is Juchuan. Passengers getting off, please be prepared. Don't forget your belongings. We've arrived at Juchuan, so there are only 2 more stops before we reach home. Seeing that it was almost time, Guan Shan was ready to inform Shen Dinghua when he would arrive. Picking up the phone, he realized that he was too engrossed in the conversation. His face was about to be blown stiff by the cold wind. Phew. The recent change of season, the temperature difference between day and night is a bit big. Guan Shan quickly reached out and rubbed his cold face. He stood up and grabbed the handle of the window and pulled the leaky window shut. At the same time, the passenger sitting in front seemed to suddenly see something outside. His expression suddenly changed. He stood up abruptly and stretched out his head to check. Click! The moment the window closed, the sound of the wind was also abandoned outside. Guan Shan vaguely saw something the size of a basketball fly through the air under the streetlight outside and hit the ground with a muffled sound, like a watermelon bursting. Is that passenger throwing the trash? Guan Shan was stunned. He turned his head to look at the center of the bus. He saw that the passenger was still in the posture of sticking his head out of the window, motionless. Guan Shan quickly said, "Hey, this is very dangerous." He was about to walk over, but he saw a drop of liquid suddenly dripping from the passenger's seat. Then 2 drops, 3 drops, a large amount of dark red, viscous liquid splashed on the ground, the walls, the windows, and uncontrollably flowed out in all directions. In an instant, the bus jolted and the passenger's body tilted and slid down dozens of centimeters. Guan Shan's footsteps froze in place. His whole body was numb and trembled uncontrollably. The hair on the back of his neck stood up. The passenger turned sideways. Above the neck ring, there was nothing. His head was long gone. Only the mangled neck cavity was gushing out blood. In a flash, Guan Shan immediately understood. The thing that just flew out of the window was not trash, but the passenger's head. Guan Shan took a step back in horror. A familiar mechanical voice sounded in his mind. Scene scanning completed. Generating horror game. Generated horror game. Last bus. Plot loading. Please wait. Chapter 12. Not long ago, a residential area not far from Guan Shan's house had been set up as a temporary base for the Tan formation operation. The Tan formation consisted of 3 members of the Yohao group's first team, a psychologist from the logistics department, and the instructor, Xiaolei. There were a total of 5 people. The Tan formation had a total of 22 teams, named after the heavenly stems and earthly branches. The earthly branches had 12 brigades. The first 6 were special forces, and the last 6 were ability user teams. The former was responsible for supporting the latter. The Yohao group was one of them. The instructor of the brigade was a B-grade ability user, Xiaolei. Each brigade was divided into 4 teams. The first team was considered the strongest, followed by the second and third team. The fourth team was made up of criminals who had been recruited. Each of them wore a special locator, a black self-destructing necklace. Although it was a little simple and crude, the missions that required these criminals were usually very dangerous, and the follow-up was not troublesome. This time, because the third team had failed, the first team was naturally sent to carry out the mission. Xiaolei was relaying the results of Schumann Lin's observations to the psychologist. The psychologist was a quiet woman with long black hair and glasses. She was using a computer to record the results. From time to time, she would nod and express her own opinions. Xiaolei muttered, "So from the current point of view, his personality is more positive. He might even be more upright and patient than the average person." The psychologist nodded and said seriously, "Yes, In today's test, I exerted a total of 3 times to create a point of anger that is enough to make a normal person explode. But he did not back down, nor did he lose his mind, nor did he show any signs of using his ability. Instead, he used the photos to set a trap for the other party. Of course, this is also an expected possibility. Xiaolei was puzzled. There were no signs of using his ability, but at that time, Jiang Xian showed an obvious sign of fear. The psychologist shook his head. That was not a sign of using his ability. It was just a subconscious deterrence. But from this, it can be seen that he did not lose his memory or change his personality. He was not replaced by anyone. The person last night was him. In short, my detailed evaluation report is here. I will upload it later. You can read it yourself. After that, the test will be on other aspects. The psychologist operated his computer and slid to an evaluation interface. A gradient from white to black, encompassing all colors, was displayed in front of him. Below it was the danger level. For now, I think he can be marked as green. He is definitely a safe personality. The psychologist concluded. But Xiaolei looked at the green on the screen and smiled bitterly. He killed 17 people in an hour last night. Even if they were puppets that had been deeply infested, it shouldn't be obvious to the naked eye before the blood samples are taken. The psychologist nodded. Indeed. After waiting for a long time, Xiaolei couldn't help but ask, "That's all?" The psychologist shrugged. "I'm only talking about facts that are within my professional scope. In terms of personality, he is indeed very normal." Her expression was very serious. Simply put, he's a good person. But the psychologist paused and said, he may indeed have a tendency towards schizophrenia, such as hallucinations, emotional stripping, or other cognitive disorders. But as for the specifics, we need to confirm further. Xiaolei nodded. Although this point was already very obvious from the recordings last night, which normal person could show a frightened expression while shooting one person in the head, but Xiaolei still felt inexplicably relieved. The energy level detector did not respond. If the psychological evaluation did not have any problems and told him that this was an ordinary person, he would have banged his head against the wall. Did an ordinary person tear apart a D-class mutant? Ability unknown, energy level unknown, background no problem, personality analysis a mess. This Guanshan was really a big trouble that it suddenly appeared. Xiaolei was a little tired. Anyway, that's all for now. Thank you for your hard work. Compared to the enthusiasm of the two, the 3 members of the first team sitting next to them were particularly quiet. But this was all on the surface. In fact, they were chatting telepathically through the special earpiece, and the topic naturally revolved around Guanshan. Damn, he killed 17 people in 1 hour. He's almost as good as that sacrificial murderer from before. How can that be green? Tang Ji could not help but complain. Even the cannon fodder of the 4th team together did not kill so many people, right? Chun Pingyan winked at him. Why don't you try synesthesia with him? You'll know if there's anything wrong with him. Tang Ji said unhappily, F***CK off. Do you think I'm stupid? Tang Ji's ability was a special type of synesthesia. As the name implied, he could communicate with the target's senses, memories, and emotions. This kind of communication could be one-way or two-way. The switch was in Tang Ji's hands, so he could use it to influence the target, but he could also be influenced by the target. If there was a backlash, the consequences would be severe. So before he could confirm Guanshan's energy level and ability, he would not try it lightly. The girl with short black hair, Gao Yi, who had been resting with her eyes closed, opened her eyes. Stop arguing. We still have a mission tonight. Have you forgotten? Tang Ji and Chun Pingyan immediately said, Yes, Captain. Clap, clap. Xiaolei walked over and clapped his hands. Seeing the 3 of them looking over, he said seriously, You all know why I called you here today, right? Tang Ji immediately nodded. Understood. After the death of Zhao Hong and his wife, who were the most complete test subjects of Shenhua Sugar, the Killer Bee organization is likely to target Guanshan again. On one hand, it's revenge. On the other hand, Guanshan does not have any energy level reaction. There's a high probability that he will be used as a test subject. Xiaolei nodded. That's right. The killer bee is already able to use the drug called sublimation sugar to create D-class ability users, and we have only found some scattered clues about their base. This is very bad for us. Using this opportunity, we must. Xiaolei's expression suddenly sank. We have lost contact with Hejiang. Her vital signs are also disappearing at the same time. They're here. The three of them suddenly changed their expressions and immediately moved. They jumped out of the house and ran towards the direction of the bus. However, in the next moment, their vision blurred and they returned to their original place. And Xiaolei was nowhere to be seen. Tang Ji and Chun Pengyun looked dazed for a moment, while Gao Ye's narrow eyes emitted a cold light. A space-type ability user, Chen Pengyun was aghast. The energy level detector attached to He Zhang's neck ring showed that there were two ability users on the bus, a D-class and a C-class. Plot loading complete. 3, 2, 1. Beep, beep, beep. The last bus is left. Welcome to the bus. This bus goes from the human world to hell. The bus starts. The living do not enter. This journey has no end. Please sit tight. Guess what will kill you? Asterisk note. Only by killing the final boss can this simulation end. The familiar mechanical voice was cold and without any ups and downs. The emotional opening seemed a bit funny, but Guan Shan couldn't laugh. Chapter 13. The moment Guan Shan heard the mechanical voice, he was stunned. In the blink of an eye, everything he saw seemed to have been filtered, and everything changed in an instant. Rustle. The lights in the carriage flickered twice. In the gap between the darkness and light, the entire carriage started to squirm. That's right, squirming. A purplish-red meat wall that was adhered to by countless tiny blood vessels spread out from the pool of blood under the severed passenger's seat. It grew wildly in all directions, as if it was going to swallow everything. What the F***CK is this? Guan Shan's forehead was covered in cold sweat. His face was pale as he took a few steps back. He was so scared that he immediately opened his backpack and equipped everything that could be equipped. There were a total of 4 equipment slots, but each of them had different functions. The left and right weapon slots and the head and body accessory slots had to correspond to each other. The large boning knife was on the left, and the unlimited ammo Glock 17 was on the right. The butcher's heart was an accessory that belonged to the body. The moment he equipped the butcher's heart, Guan Shan clearly felt another heartbeat in his chest that resonated with his original heartbeat. Thump, thump, thump. It was more powerful and rough. The blood that pumped out seemed to carry the ambition of another dead soul that wanted to tear everything apart. However, this heart was ultimately a simulation. After a few heartbeats, it calmed down. Phew. Guan Shan touched his chest and took a deep breath. He felt a slight sense of security. Even if he knew that everything in front of him was a simulation, this kind of overwhelming unknown would still cause a strong sense of panic. Fortunately, he was no longer the blank slate from the first simulation. Guan Shan looked at the items that were still in his backpack. No matter what kind of monster appeared later, he was confident that he could face it. When the lights flickered for the first time, this piece of meat wall only covered the middle of the carriage. It wrapped the passenger's body and the seat in it. Only the severed neck was exposed. From afar, it looked like a strange statue. At the end of the carriage, the driver, who had no sense of presence from the beginning, slowly stood up from his seat. Kacha! The driver calmly reached out his white-gloved hand and opened the isolation door beside the seat. He raised his head and looked at Guan Shan from afar. No, he didn't have eyes. Therefore, this could not be called eye contact in the traditional sense. Not only did the driver not have eyes, he didn't even have basic facial features. However, Guan Shan felt a chill run down his spine as if he was being targeted. That face seemed to have been kneaded into a ball of dough, or like countless human faces stacked together. His expression vaguely seemed to be crying and struggling. But when you take a closer look, you will find that there is nothing on it. This eye contact didn't last long. The driver's information appeared in front of the stiff Guan Shan. Boss faceless driver, Elvine, health points, 10,000. Description, your face is my face. F***CK. Guan Shan didn't have time to be frightened. He stared at the information interface, dumbfounded. He counted the zeros again to make sure that he didn't count wrongly. 10,000 HP, a total of 10,000 HP. Guanshan was dumbfounded. What the F***CK is this level? He was now level 9, plus the 10% bonus passive of Rotten Meat. He only had 990 HP. The opponent was only one level higher than him, but his HP was 10 times higher. Guanshan couldn't understand, but he was shocked. This game could still be played? Am I really playing a horror game simulator and not a wolf simulator? Oh, in a sense, this wolf should be considered a horror game. After all, in a normal game, how can you die hundreds of times and directly give you a psychological shadow? And now there are no other monsters for him to kill to gain experience. In other words, he now has to fight 10,000 HP with 1,000 HP. Ha ha ha! Or should I just kill myself? Guanshan almost fainted because of this dog simulator. The light flickered for the second time. The surroundings fell into darkness and regained light. And this time, what appeared in front of Guanshan was a world completely wrapped in a wall of flesh. The steel structure of the bus was completely submerged in the flesh. Whether it was the chairs, pillars, railings, or other things, they were all covered by the bloody flesh wall, wriggling as if they could pounce at any time. Guanshan subconsciously stepped back, but the touch of the soles of his shoes was also soft and slippery. It made him feel extremely disgusted and uncomfortable. Guanshan took a deep breath again, trying to calm himself down. Although it was a monster with 10 times his HP, when he thought about it carefully, at the carnivorous restaurant, he was also a blank level 1 at the beginning and finally defeated the level 8 boss chef. In fact, it was already 10 times his HP, and at that time, he didn't have the equipment he had now. So, the difficulty given by the simulator shouldn't be as high as he thought. Screech. There was an ear-piercing and sharp sound of metal scraping above Guanshan's head. He shivered, and only felt that the top of his head was cold. No, it was really cold. Guanshan suddenly looked up and saw a ray of moonlight leaking from the roof of the bus. In the gloomy and terrifying environment, this ray of moonlight was like a bright light in the dark night, dazzling and deadly. Because what followed after it was a slender, sinister-looking black insect limb. Through the hole pierced through the roof of the bus, a huge and ferocious spider-shaped monster was entrenched on the roof of the bus, piercing its sharp limbs into the bus. Insect cage, spider, LV9, HP, 1,200 description, it only weaves nightmares. F***CK. In that instant, Guanshan only had time to dodge to the side in a sorry state. But the side of the limb that was as sharp as a knife still left a deep mark on his face. HP -5. Guanshan didn't have time to rejoice. The next moment, there was an additional poisoned in his status. And under the HP bar, there was an additional green progress bar. The system gave another thoughtful notification. Debuff buffer triggered. When the player falls into a debuff, there will be a certain amount of time to buffer. If the debuff hasn't been cleared when this progress bar reaches 0, a certain amount of HP will be slowly deducted by percentage. You're so F***king considerate. Okay, this time it's really considerate. Guanshan really didn't expect that there would be a buffer time for him to take medicine when he was poisoned. The horror game simulator was so kind. And coincidentally, in a novice combo pack that he bought for $648, the effect of the first aid bandage, in addition to recovering a large amount of HP, also had the effect of removing debuffs. Thank God. It turns out that all the novice packs are the manufacturer's last bit of conscience to the players. The driver and the spider attack from both sides. Guanshan used the first aid bandage, ignoring the wound on his face, and quickly wrapped it around his wrist. Chapter 14. Just as the Taiyan formation had guessed, the killer bees had come for Guanshan. This normal person, who had no energy level reaction, but was able to kill 2D level ability users, had attracted a lot of attention that night. Some were scrutinizing, some were curious, and naturally, some were malicious. Not to mention the so-called sublimation candy developed by the killer bees. It was a type of drug that could forcefully awaken a normal person's ability by overdrawing their life force. In other words, the target had to have no energy level reaction. The killer bees needed a large number of different samples to test its effects. The Zhao couple were the previous victims. This time, they had their eyes on an even better one. It could even be said to be the perfect material, Guanshan. There were two members sent by the killer bees, Tao Luo and BK. Tao Luo's code name was Worker Bee 4, and BK was Worker Bee 10. In the killer bees organization, only by killing the other person or defeating the next person in line with the code name could they inherit the corresponding code name. This meant that Tao Luo was the fourth most powerful ability user among the worker bees. But he was only a worker bee. The drones would not carry out such a simple mission. That's right, simple. In Tao Luo's opinion, this mission was simply too simple. No matter how he looked at it, the target was at most a D-level physical ability user. Other than his extraordinary observation skills and the ability to consume other people's bodies to heal, there was nothing special about him. The lack of energy level reaction was probably a disguise. No matter how amazing his performance was, he had only killed 2 D-level ability users, who hadn't killed before. Tao Luo had just recently broken through to C-level and was full of confidence in his own strength. Through his own personal experience and the newly collected D-level ability user's face, he experienced the qualitative leap between C-level and D-level ability users. I wonder if this person's face will be different after peeling it off? Tao Luo thought as he licked the corner of his mouth in fascination. His favorite thing was to collect the faces of losers and make them his permanent collection. Although Tao Luo could not hold back his excitement, he still had to play his role as a driver. How to hide it from the people of the Tay and formation was the problem that the organization needed to solve. As for him, all he needed to do was to wait for the right opportunity. BK, who had the ability to manipulate space, teleported Xia Lei to the city 5 kilometers away. By the time this B-class paranormal came back, he would only see the corpses of his subordinates, right? The more Tao Luo thought about it, the more excited he got. It was his first time killing someone right under the nose of a B-grade arcanist. Knock knock. Someone knocked on a glass window from the left. Tao Luo knew that BK was reminding him that he was about to take action. Tao Luo looked at the child who was peeking his head down from the roof of the car. Because his body was as thin as a match, his head was exceptionally large. When his eyes stared straight at people, it was rather terrifying. This was the child who had recently joined the killer bees as a semi-successful subject of the sublimation sugar experiment. Previously, he was a homeless child who came out of nowhere and was caught by the members of the organization to feed him sublimation candy. He did not expect that he would awaken the rare, spatial, supernatural ability, teleportation. Unfortunately, the sublimation candy was not perfected at that time. Its power was not something that an ordinary child who had been malnourished for a long time could withstand. The moment BK awakened, the huge and complex energy even gave him the physical strength of a D-class physical ability user. A paranormal who had both power and the ability to teleport sounded very good. Unfortunately, BK only had 1 month left to live. I'm just making the best use of everything. Tao Luo heard the sound of the 10 formation guy's head falling to the ground from behind and sneered. Okay, it's almost time. It's time to send this reporter on his way. Tao Luo stopped the bus at a leisurely pace before leaving the driver's seat. He tugged at his gloves and walked toward the terrified Guanshan, who kept retreating. Under the lights of the bus, Guanshan's pale and panicked expression was clear as day. Ha! That's right. That's the expression. Give me more. Tao Luo raised his hand. His senses had already spread throughout the bus. All the metal was under his control and had become his will. You're already so scared now. How good will it be when you're torn apart? BK also made his move at this moment. The poison blade stabbed through the gap in the roof and stabbed Guanshan with lightning speed. Woohoo! Tao Luo cheered for this knife in his heart. The blade was coated with neurotoxin. Even a physical ability user wouldn't be able to withstand it. It only took 3 seconds for the toxin to paralyze the nerves. It was basically a death sentence. And judging from Guanshan's reaction speed, it also confirmed his thoughts. This guy was at most a D-class physical ability user. He was simply making a fuss over nothing. There was no need to waste the sublimation candy on someone who already had an ability. Just as Tao Luo was about to count to 3 in his heart and end this reporter's life in the most painful way, he saw Guanshan, who was dodging pathetically, suddenly take out a roll of bandages from somewhere. Bandages? Tao Luo was stunned. He couldn't understand the situation for a moment. Is he planning to use bandages to stop the bleeding? Tao Luo found it ridiculous and funny. Is he so scared that he can't even think straight? And isn't he injured on his face? Is he planning to tie his head up? No matter how inexperienced a person was, it was impossible for them to try to bandage their face in such an urgent battle. Tao Luo could only conclude that Guanshan's abnormal behavior was because he was scared silly. So he was interested in seeing what Guanshan was going to do. It was one of his pleasures to enjoy the ugliness of his prey before they died. However, Guanshan didn't tie the bandage on his head. He tied it on his hand. Tao Luo was stunned again. Then he finally couldn't help but laugh. Ha 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 ha. Interesting, interesting. I'm a little reluctant to kill you, but this is a mission after all. He thought for a moment and said magnanimously, how about this? I'll give you time for this sublimation candy to take effect to prolong your last breath as thanks for the performance you brought me. Rejoice and then struggle. Guanshan's head was covered in cold sweat. He saw the faceless monster in front of him dance and make a bunch of incomprehensible sounds. Then it took out an orange candy-like object and looked like it was about to walk over. Guanshan felt that it might be about to use a big move. The speed at which he tied the bandage on his hand increased. First aid bandage. Effect. Immediately recover 20% HP. Remove poison, stun, slow, and other negative statuses. Description. Applied externally and taken orally. Guaranteed to cure all diseases. Clearly, it only needed to be tied to the body. Even if it was used, it still needed to be applied externally and taken orally. How immoral was this simulator? It was definitely fake to say that it could cure all diseases, but the effect was real. Although Guanshan's HP was almost full and it was a waste to use the first aid bandage, he couldn't withstand the poison status. Even if he had full HP of 990, this level 10 monster might not be able to kill him in one hit. Not to mention the poison status. However, because the monster had inexplicably paused just now, Guanshan had already found the only usable item in this scene. On the empty neck of the passenger who was wrapped in the meat wall, the word explosive was displayed. Chapter 15. Explosive Level 2. Effect. After detonation, it immediately causes a large area of effect damage. It also causes 7 burn damage per second and destroys the surrounding environment. Description. Art is __. Please fill in the appropriate word. Guanshan's gaze stopped at the empty neck for a second. Then he remembered that the passenger was wearing a very non-mainstream black collar. So, based on the position, is that an explosive? That's crazy. Why would a normal person put a bomb around their neck? No, this was no longer about whether it was normal or not. No one would do such a thing. But now, Guanshan was in a horror game scene simulated by the simulator, so he thought it was reasonable. It was too reasonable. Since there was a ubiquitous Glock 17 in the restaurant, it wasn't surprising that there was an explosive on the bus. After all, he was playing a horror game. However, Guanshan was more and more certain that when he stepped on the bus, he had entered a virtual space created by the simulator. He didn't wait for the simulator to sound. Scene scan complete. The unfortunate passenger who became the Headless Horseman was probably just a part of the simulation. Humph. Using the time difference to create a sense of realism to scare the player, this simulator is very bad. Based on the first simulation, this simulator will not create a situation where death is certain. The existing items and scenes should all be useful breakthroughs. Guanshan's brain spun quickly as he thought, and when the driver appeared, the biggest change was the layer of flesh that spread throughout the entire car. Around him, including under his feet, was a collection of purple-red blood vessels that emitted a scary and ominous aura. These things not only formed a part of the scene, but they also gave off a dangerous feeling that they could pounce at any time. They wriggled as if they were alive. Guan Shan's mind raced. This wall of flesh might be a part of the driver. As long as I'm in the bus, it means that I'm under its control. So, from the start, this guy didn't show any strong desire to attack. Could it be because of this? But if this is really the case, then explosives that can cause large-scale damage and environmental damage are the key to turning the situation around. The driver will definitely pass by the dead body on his way here. If I want to inflict the most damage, I have to find the time when he's closest to the bomb. I only have one chance. When the car is blown up, I'll use the crowbar to open the door. Guan Shan calmed down, took a deep breath, and adjusted his body's center of gravity and state. After reaching level 9, his physical fitness had undergone an earth-shattering change compared to before. His control over his body had also increased by more than just a little. For example, the spider monster's attack just now. If it had been the original him, his entire face would have been pierced. It wouldn't have been surprising if he had died on the spot. But now it was just a light -5 and a bloody scar. Guan Shan was confident that if he were to face that chef again, he would be evenly matched with him even if he did not use any weapons. However, there was no problem of his body not being able to adapt to the speed of his improvement. The simulator would solve all the problems. Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, muffled noises kept coming from the roof of the car, mixed with the ear-piercing sound of sharp objects rubbing against metal. It was easy to imagine that the spider monster occupying the roof of the car was using its own limbs to walk. Its huge body pressed down on the roof of the car, causing it to sink slightly. The sharp ends of its limbs almost pierced into the metal of the car roof, leaving deep marks. All right, the simulator will not only solve the problem, it will also create more problems. After I get out, I still have to face that poisonous spider. If I get stabbed again, I won't have a second bandage. Guan Shan watched as the faceless driver got closer and closer. He focused on listening to the footsteps of the monster on the roof of the car. He thought fiercely, then why don't I get rid of it together? Bang! The muffled footsteps on the roof of the car came closer and closer. In this silent night, it was like a ripple spreading out from a point. Guan Shan's hearing was now even sharper, and under a highly focused state, he easily determined the location of the spider. Hee-hee-hee-ha-ha. The driver in the carriage shook his head and let out a strange and eerie laugh. Its face kept changing as it walked over step by step. Guan Shan's palms were sweaty, and his heart was racing. He approached the back door of the car that was blocked by the meat wall. He closed his eyes, and the entire bus unfolded like a planar map. The driver and the spider turned into two dots, and the average distance between them and the bodies of the passengers was getting closer and closer. Closer, closer. The driver had already passed by the corpse. However, the spider happened to be right above the corpse. Now, bang, 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 bang. Guan Shan finally exhaled. He pulled out his Glock 17 from behind him and fired several shots at the corpse's neck. The explosive in Kieran's sight, which was the collar, was as red as his weak point. The bullets flew straight at the red color at a speed that could not be seen by the naked eye. The driver obviously did not react in time. After being stunned for 2 seconds, he let out an indescribable roar, and his entire face was distorted. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. Its featureless face was as abstract as the famous painting The Scream. The meat walls of the entire bus were rioting. They showed a violent purple-black color, and they were wriggling densely like waves. Some of them blocked the bullets, while the others attacked Guan Shan. However, after Guan Shan pulled out his gun and fired, he did not look back. He turned around and replaced the boning knife with a crowbar. He took out the crowbar and hooked the front end of the crowbar through the gap of the door. When a meat wall swarmed toward him, he suddenly pulled. Crowbar. Effect. Open all doors that cannot be opened. Description. The holy sword of physics. You deserve to have it. Click. Crash. The back door opened, and Guan Shan jumped out of the car. Tao Luo did not expect Guan Shan to suddenly pull out a gun. Where did he get a gun? However, there was no doubt that he was fooled. Tao Luo angrily ordered the metal in the entire bus. They obeyed his order and turned into sharp swords that pierced toward Guan Shan. At the same time, they directly turned the back door into a metal block. It was completely sealed without leaving any gaps. Let's see where you can run to. Tao Luo's lips curled into a sneer, but the next moment, it froze on his face. Guan Shan pulled out a crowbar from nowhere and stuck it in the middle of the metal block. Then, like Moses parting the sea, the door was split into two. Chapter 16. Tao Luo's sneer froze on his face, making him look extremely comical. He looked at the metal block in front of him in disbelief. It was as if it had always been two parts. His mind was filled with question marks. No, how did it open? That wasn't even a door. Just now, he had used his ability to completely seal the door with a metal wall. There wasn't a single gap left. Tao Luo didn't want to investigate how the crowbar appeared out of thin air like the pistol. He just assumed that it was Guan Shan's true ability. Space-type abilities were rare, but they weren't incomprehensible. Therefore, he wanted to know how this thing could be inserted into the solid metal wall that was 5 centimeters thick without any resistance, and how it could split the entire metal wall into two halves in an instant. Was this something a crowbar could do? Who could explain this? Of course, no one could. Tao Luo could only clench his teeth and watch as Guan Shan jumped out. He controlled the metal spikes to condense again and chased after him. So what if he escaped? That idiot had just given up on his only chance to survive. Tao Luo shouted, "BK, kill him!" He didn't care about the bullets at all, because the bullets were metal. Within his domain, metal was a plaything in his hands. Tao Luo's ability had just broken through to C grade and was weaker than the average elemental ability user. Therefore, the bullets were not easy to control. However, it was very easy to slow down the bullets, soften the metal, and then intercept them. Tao Luo never felt that the bullets were a threat to him. However, when he wanted to control the bullets, he realized that they wouldn't move at all. His will couldn't be attached to them at all. How is this possible? Tao Luo was stunned. The metal spikes he controlled were still chasing after Guan Shan. His ability couldn't be ineffective. Unless the bullets weren't metal. Yes, Tao Luo suddenly realized that it wasn't metal. Although he couldn't control the bullets, non-metal bullets couldn't penetrate the special self-destruct collar and make it explode. It seemed like it was just a bluff. This reporter was quite smart. That was what he was thinking. Several bullets flew through the air, and 3 of them hit the collar accurately. It could not be said that they were not accurate. It was the complete opposite of what Toro had expected. The huge kinetic energy of the bullet caused it to pierce through the protective shell of the collar and shatter the detonator. Metal rubbed against metal, and sparks flew everywhere. The car doors suddenly opened. Guan Shan jumped out of the bus, rolled on the ground, and immediately switched the crowbar to a boning knife. Just as he finished this action, boom! The sound of an explosion suddenly rang out behind him. The heat wave billowed and lifted Guan Shan's clothes, causing him to stagger. The impact rippled outwards and shook the surrounding trees. Guan Shan turned around and steadied himself. Looking at the bus that had almost been broken in half, he was somewhat surprised. This level 2 explosive is quite powerful. According to the description of a simulator, explosives and skills had a total of 5 levels. Level 2 was already like this. Could level 5 be a nuclear bomb? Hiss! He didn't dare to think about it. Now that Guan Shan was outside, he realized that not only was the bus covered in disgusting purple-red flesh walls, but the outside was also covered in disgusting flesh walls. There was probably an incendiary added to the explosives. The flames from the explosion were still attached to the flesh walls. The high temperature even melted part of the central area, and some unknown black substance dripped onto the ground. All the flesh walls seemed to be wriggling in pain, and they even let out a low groan. It was no longer like a bus, but a monster from hell. The driver stood up shakily from the ruins. He held his faceless head and seemed to be in a daze. His clothes were tattered, and he was missing an arm. Flames wrapped around his body, and -7, -7, -7 kept popping up. Guan Shan had only cared about jumping out. Now that he checked the information, he realized that the driver's HP had been reduced by 3/5. This explosion had actually taken 6,000 HP from the boss. I knew it. The explosives that gave a hint were indeed the key. Guanshan was delighted. But then he remembered that he had lost 6,000 HP, and the boss still had 4,000 HP. To him, this was still an insurmountable mountain. It's still better than 10 times. It's only 4,000 HP. Now that he has the HP buff, I'll kite him to death. Guanshan comforted himself, and then he became alert. Wait, there's still one more monster. Hiss! A strange sound came from above. Guanshan felt a shadow appear above his head. His heart skipped a beat, and he immediately raised his bone-paring knife. The next moment, a huge spider monster suddenly fell from the sky, waving its limbs like sharp blades. F***CK. This monster knows how to flash. Clang! The crisp sound of iron striking rang out. Guanshan felt as if he had caught a 200-pound fatty with his bare hands, and the bone-paring knife sank down with his elbow. Minus 10 HP. F***CK. This strength is too much. Why is the damage higher than my attack? Guanshan made a prompt decision and immediately used Butcher's Heart. Thump! The second heartbeat sounded again, but this time it did not disappear like an illusion. Instead, it instantly pumped out the blood filled with murderous intent. Accompanied by the drum-like heartbeat, Guanshan could clearly feel the blood flowing from his chest to his limbs and bones. The veins on Guanshan's forehead bulged, and a strong force emerged from where the blood flowed. Only 30 seconds. Guanshan's gaze turned cold, and he easily blocked the spider with the bone-paring knife with one hand. Instead of retreating, he moved forward and stabbed the knife into the spider's body. He even smashed the ground, making it unable to move. With his other hand, he took out his secondary weapon, the Glock 17. I'll let you flash. I can't beat you at level 10, but I'm not afraid of you at level 9. Go die. The black muzzle was aimed at the spider, and its weak point was revealed. It was the eye in the middle of the spider's huge body. Guanshan fired a few shots, and all of them hit the bullseye. Dash 324. Dash 300. Minus 402. Minus 200. Ouch. The spider let out a mournful wail and fell backward, instantly dying. Guanshan did not stop for a moment. He did not even look at the leveling up notification. He took out the flesh entanglement parasite and ate it to replenish his health. He had a hunch that the driver's stun from the explosion would be gone. Health point plus 10 plus 10 plus 10. Numbers appeared in front of his eyes every second. As it turned out, his hunch was right. Before Guanshan could even swallow the healing medicine in his mouth, he heard an inhuman scream, followed by a few whooshing sounds. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A few dark tentacles made of various swollen and rotting tumors penetrated Guanshan's chest and abdomen and even stirred. Health points minus 920. Guanshan's vision turned dark red, warning him that his health was severely low. F***CK. F***CKU. Stupid game. Guanshan was scared out of his wits. He thought he was going to die. He cursed angrily, looked at his hollowed-out body, and took out the adrenaline shot from his backpack. He stabbed a needle into his own heart. Chapter 17. Adrenaline Injection. Effect. Immediately recover to full HP and double the maximum HP. After 10 seconds, HP will be reduced to 1. Description. Are you willing to be a dog for life or a hero for 10 seconds? Such a simple and crude effect was a true life-saving artifact. Guanshan inserted the injection, and the dark red circle in front of him disappeared instantly. In the blink of an eye, I've almost used up half of the 648 Beginner's Survival Combo Pack. Beginners can't survive if they don't buy this. Guanshan couldn't help but complain loudly in his heart. He blinked in a daze. The hole in his body that was pierced by the tentacles was gone. Not only was the hole gone, but the blood was also gone. His clothes were as clean as new. It was as if something had pressed the one-click refresh button. It was as if the fierce battle just now had never happened. Guanshan glanced at his HP and saw that it had dropped to 2,200. Why was it 2,200 and not 990 times 2 is equal to 1,980? That was because Guanshan had leveled up after killing the spider monster. The information displayed by the simulator was still in his vision. Experience plus 1800 LV, 9 LV, 10, not broken through. Current EXP, 11501000, not broken. Current HP, 11001100, not broken. Asterisk note. After the player reaches level 10, the EXP will be locked at 1000 and must complete a breakthrough mission to reach a higher level. At the same time, more shop items and functions will be unlocked. This is a scam. Guanshan would be angered to death by this stupid simulator sooner or later. Even at this critical moment, he really wanted to give this simulator 2 big punches. I'm about to die, and you don't want to level me up? He was so angry that he trembled. But there was no other way. After all, the simulator didn't have a physical body. He couldn't hit it even if he wanted to. Guanshan was different. He had a mortal body and would die if he was stabbed by the monster. So, once the effect of the adrenaline injection took effect, Guanshan turned and ran. But he didn't run away. Instead, he rushed in the direction of the driver. I've added all the buffs that can be used. If I don't succeed, I'll die trying. Guanshan gritted his teeth and made up his mind. He swallowed the parasite again and stared at the driver's movements, ready to dodge at any moment. Although his 2000 plus HP was still not as good as the opponent's 4000 HP, the difference was very small compared to the beginning. Butcher's Heart. S effect hadn't even worn off yet. With the two added together, the increase in strength was simply 1 plus 1 greater than 2. Guanshan even felt like he could tear the Hulk apart with his bare hands. Well, that was still unrealistic. However, he felt that his chances of survival were already very high. It'll take at least 2 stabs to kill me, right? Guanshan thought, trying to find joy in the midst of bitterness. But he didn't know if it was an illusion, but when he rushed over, the driver seemed to have taken half a step back. Tao Luo stared at the scene before him in shock. A fear that came from the bottom of his heart towards something he could not understand suddenly welled up in his heart. The reporter struggled as 3 or 4 metal spikes pierced through his body. Even his chest and abdomen had been minced, and all his internal organs flowed to the ground. No matter how he looked at it, this person was already dead. Tao Luo naturally thought so too. He didn't think that Guanshan had any chance of turning the tables. However, when he controlled the metal spikes to pull them out, he saw Guanshan reach out and take out a syringe, which he then stabbed into his own heart. Now, I thought you would give me a surprise. Now, no medicine can save your life. Tao Luo was dismissive of Guanshan's actions. If there was medicine in this world that could bring back the dead, wouldn't it have been thus? He saw the scene in front of him that he would never forget for the rest of his life. Guanshan's body seemed to have gone back in time. The internal organs on the ground returned to his chest and abdomen, and the blood and flesh were rearranged, stitched together, and finally merged back into one. What was even more outrageous was that even his clothes were restored. This is definitely not something that can be done with a syringe, right? Tao Luo was shocked one after another. In a trance, he felt that there was a big problem with his common sense. When Guanshan rushed over, he subconsciously took half a step back. However, Tao Luo then became angry with his own actions. How can I be scared? I can't be scared. He must be messing with my thoughts. What is this guy's ability? Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Tao Luo crazily ordered the metal he could control to form all kinds of shapes and attack Guanshan. However, only he knew whether he wanted to attack Guanshan or not. Clang, clang. Guanshan waved the boning knife with one hand and focused on the trajectory of each tentacle, blocking them. At the same time, he raised the Glock 17 and bullets poured out like rain. It was clearly a pistol, but it created the illusion of a machine gun. Since he had unlimited bullets, he didn't need to care about accuracy in this situation. Even if he hit, he would succeed. Every bit of HP was still a bit. Tao Luo also realized that something was wrong. The Glock 17 was a very classic gun. It was said that the reason it was suffixed with 17 bullets was because it only had a capacity of 17 bullets. However, from the moment Guanshan took out the gun until now, he had already shot more than 17 bullets. What is this guy? No, I don't care what you are. As long as you're dead, you're nothing. Tao Luo's cognition was on the verge of collapse. Even if he felt a dull pain in his brain because he had been using his ability for a long time, he didn't relax his attack frequency. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Guanshan used all his strength to dodge and move, shuttling between the tentacles. Finally, after paying the price of being pierced again, he rushed to the faceless driver. The driver's HP finally dropped to 1032. The faceless face was particularly ferocious at this moment. The countless churning faces were like reflections in the water, intertwining with each other as if they were ghosts coming for a life. The closer he got, the more terrifying it was. Guanshan's scalp instantly went numb. However, he had already realized that the driver was really retreating. He was only controlling the tentacles to attack, but his own retreating speed was still very slow. What did this mean? This meant that the boss wasn't good at close combat. As long as I can get close, victory will be on my side. Guanshan held on to this belief and overcame the fear in his heart. He braced himself and lowered his head to dodge a tentacle. Then, he rolled forward and slammed into the driver's arms. The bone-paring knife was suddenly thrust forward. The edge of the knife was placed on the faceless driver's neck, leaving a bloody mark. At this moment, the driver suddenly raised his hand and grabbed Guanshan's wrist. The faceless face suddenly turned into a whirlpool. Tao Luo revealed a greedy expression. Ability Absorb. Chapter 18. The newly promoted C-grade ability user Tao Luo's ability wasn't the elemental ability of metal control. In other words, he only had this ability for the time being. His real ability was the trait ability of ability absorption. As the name implied, Tao Luo could absorb another person's ability through physical contact, but there were a lot of restrictions. First of all, the other person's energy level had to be lower than his. Second, the physical contact had to last for more than 3 seconds. Finally, he could only have one ability at a time. If he wanted to get a new ability, he had to refresh the previous ability. And because his own energy level was still very low, even if he met all of the above conditions, there was still a chance of failure when absorbing another person's ability. He could only retain about 60% of the ability absorbed from him. Although it sounded a bit useless, in theory, it was a heaven-defying ability. As long as Tao Luo could absorb the ability of a powerful ability user before they had grown up, then it was equivalent to him having the ability of the other person. Even if it was only 60%, it didn't matter, because the ability itself was powerful enough. A starving camel was still bigger than a horse, right? There was no doubt that Tao Luo had done this. He was really lucky. When Tao Luo had first awakened, he had already known how to hide his ability. As everyone knew, the energy levels of ability users were divided into 7 levels. FS, and E-grade ability users had almost no surface characteristics. Aside from their energy level reactions, they were almost no different from ordinary people. More obvious abilities, such as sensing the weather, magnetic fields, and being able to move small objects, and so on. Less powerful abilities might just be better luck than ordinary people, affinity with animals, and so on. The most common identities of F-grade and E-grade ability users were fortune tellers, psychics, and psychics who pretended to be mysterious. They also had some small circles of their own. The government didn't purposely manage these small circles because it was too difficult to conduct a census of ability users below D-grade, and there was no need to do so. They could only have the first 6 brigades of the Taiyan formation periodically conduct surveys, visits, and registrations. So Tao Luo, who was still a businessman at the time, used various means to get involved with a gathering of low-grade ability users. He was very lucky to meet a child who mistook his metal control ability for telekinesis. That's not a child. He's probably in junior high school. Tao Luo could still recall the scene at the gathering. Those low-level espers lit candles, and the atmosphere was harmonious. They took turns to talk about their abilities as if they were telling ghost stories, laughing from time to time. It was quite heartwarming. Then, it was the child, a half-grown boy, who proudly displayed his ability. All the metal objects in the room floated up, and everyone fell silent in an instant. That shock and slight fear could still be felt even now. Someone noticed something strange and asked the child, "Why do you only control metal?" He still remembered the child saying, "I don't know. I think I can only control things made of metal." Everyone began to discuss the matter at once. Finally, the leader made up his mind and said to the child, "Your ability might not be a weak ability that can only move objects, but an elemental ability called metal control. I will report your situation to the higher-ups and re-examine your ability and energy level. It will take about 3 days, so you should stay at home for the next few days." After the gathering ended, Tao Luo didn't leave. He hid behind the wall and smoked a cigarette. He listened to the leader congratulate the child's parents and flatter the arrogant and ignorant junior high school kid. Tao Luo was a businessman. As long as there was a 50% profit, it was enough for a businessman to take risks. But right now, there was an opportunity for a 1,000% profit in front of him. How good would it be if no one knew about this? Why do they have to be nosy? Why do they have to report it? Why couldn't they just let him quietly, secretly extract that ability? During those 3 days, Tao Luo often went for a walk near the child's home, and these thoughts lingered in his mind. On the 3rd day, the child sneaked out of the house and went to an internet cafe with his classmates. Tao Luo laughed in his heart. After all, he was still a child. How could he stay at home and be bored? Why can't you be more obedient? If you could listen to the leader, listen to your parents and stay at home, or listen to me and don't move, then you wouldn't have died. Tao Luo held the child's face and squeezed the latter's chubby face. Looking at the distorted face, he smiled proudly. "From now on, the face that others give you is mine." He waved his hand, and a broken blade from the garbage pile flew over. Tao Luo used this rusty blade to cut off the first face he collected. Then he walked out of the alley, took out a $100 bill with his bloody hand, and handed it to the child's trembling classmate. "Thank you for your help." Tao Luo's life changed. As for what happened to this classmate, he didn't pay attention to it anymore. Now that he thought about it, Tao Luo still felt that he was so lucky. He only found out later that among the 3 major abilities, the physical system, the trait system, and the elemental system was undoubtedly the strongest. Almost all elemental systems were directly B rank when they were awakened. He didn't know what happened, but he actually picked up an F rank opportunity. Therefore, Tao Luo always carefully preserved this good luck. From then until now, he never changed his ability. But now, a more suitable person has come, a powerful ability, but without an energy rank. Tao Luo's eyes were fierce, but at the same time, it was mixed with deep greed. He had suppressed this greed for so many years. He had killed so many people and skinned so many people's faces. Every time he encountered a powerful ability, he would ask himself if it was worth it to change it and lose the original ability. Every time, the answer was that it wasn't worth it. But this time was different. Tao Luo thought of Guan Shan's spatial ability that allowed him to take things at any time. He thought of his strange crowbar and thought of his needle that was equivalent to coming back from the dead. Without a doubt, it was worth it. "Give me your ability, ha-ha." Tao Luo didn't even care about the boning knife that was getting deeper and deeper into his neck. He grabbed Guan Shan's arm and activated his true ability. After so many years, the feeling of wantonly plundering others came again. Tao Luo narrowed his eyes in intoxication. He felt like he was high up like a god, ready to welcome an even greater power. Things were just as he expected. Tao Luo felt that his limbs and bones were quickly filled with power. This power was so strong that it instantly healed all his injuries. At the same time, it made him feel twice as strong. Bang! Tao Luo revealed a sinister and proud sneer. He waved his hand and threw away the blade on his neck. At the same time, he sent the shocked Guan Shan flying and rolling a few times on the ground. Tao Luo was ecstatic. He looked at his hands and laughed at the sky. "I'm invincible. Ha ha, GA." His laughter didn't even last for a second before it came to an abrupt end. Tao Luo was horrified to find that he was like a punctured balloon. The power that came in a hurry also left in a hurry. Oh no, no, no. Not only that, a soul-deep pain began to spread throughout his body. It was as if his body was disintegrating from the inside. Every muscle fiber ruptured after being squeezed to the extreme. Blood flowed out from all the pores on his body. Under this extreme pain, Tao Luo couldn't help but kneel down and tremble. Ugh! Guanshan nervously climbed up from the ground. When he was ready to fight again, he was completely stunned. Why did the effects of the butcher's heart and adrenaline shot disappear? Why did the boss kneel down and stop moving? Also, why did its HP become 1? Guanshan had a blank look on his face. He had no idea what was going on. Chapter 19. It's over. He watched as the faceless driver suddenly jumped up and threw the boning knife in his hand, sending him flying out uncontrollably. That was what Guanshan thought at first. At this moment, the driver's explosive force was unstoppable. He didn't even have a chance to resist. Guanshan felt like a baby fighting with an adult. He personally experienced what it meant to be a mantis trying to stop a chariot, an ant trying to shake a tree. However, when he stood up again with the determination to die, he changed out his Glock 17 and healing potion and was ready to fight with his life. He found that the boss had only 1 HP left and was kneeling on the ground. He was struggling in pain and looked like he was dying. Even a faceless face showed a painful atmosphere. The facial muscles were all wrinkled up like a chrysanthemum. What's going on? I've already taken off my pants and almost peed on the spot. You're just showing me this? Guanshan couldn't believe it. Guanshan couldn't accept it. Guanshan decisively raised his gun and aimed at the driver's head. Bang! A headshot. The HP dropped to 0. The driver fell to the ground and struggled. He stretched out his hand as if trying to reach where Guanshan was. It wasn't until he died that he vaguely saw that the only thing reflected in Guanshan's eyes was the distorted face without facial features. The person named Tao Luo didn't seem to be able to get the face he wanted until he died. Phew! Seeing the prompt from the simulator in front of him, Guanshan finally breathed a sigh of relief. He touched his forehead, which was covered in cold sweat. Guanshan finally understood what was going on. The boss must have activated some kind of ability before it died, trying to take away all the buffs on him. However, he didn't expect that although the buffs were strong, there would be a backlash when the time was up. So the boss directly tricked himself and got the negative effect of HP will be reduced to 1 after 10 seconds. What should I say? I can only say that the boss is really unlucky. Guanshan's mouth twitched. He was glad that he had decisively used the adrenaline shot. Otherwise, even though Butcher's heart, this effect would disappear after a few seconds, he would still have to grind for a while before he could kill the boss. It wasn't as easy as it was now. Guanshan began to check the notifications. Experience plus 12,000. Current experience 131501000. Not broken through. Current HP 11001100. Not broken. Final boss killed. The simulation has ended. This scenario will be destroyed soon. Please leave as soon as possible. Countdown 059. 12,000 experience points. Guanshan's eyes widened. Seeing such a huge number, all the fear and torment from before seemed to have been swept away. I didn't waste the only 2 HP recovery items in the newbie survival combo pack. I almost died. At least this simulator has some conscience. Guanshan felt refreshed. He felt better. However, Guanshan's happiness didn't last long. He remembered that he hadn't done the breakthrough mission. No matter how much experience he had now, he couldn't use it. His expression turned ugly again. It would be better if this stupid simulator didn't have this level breakthrough limit. Because this scenario was built inside the bus, even if it was destroyed, it would probably only be the bus. Now that Guanshan was outside, he didn't have to be nervous about the countdown. He slightly distanced himself from the bus wreckage and picked up the items that should be picked up. He then angrily continued to check the notifications. Game simulation ended. Last bus, final boss killed. 1-to-1 rating, elite monster killed. 1-to-1 rating, acquired items. Sublimation candy X1, poison ointment X1, someone's bank card X1, damaged metal card X1. Worker, B pendant X1. Rating, perfect, all acquired items can be kept. Acquired reward. Game coins x 5,000, skill points x 2. Unlocked achievement. No survivors. Kill all monsters in 2 scenarios in a row. Achievement reward. Skill book. Magic pattern drawing x 1. All rewards have been sent to the backpack. Please check. Breakthrough mission unlocked. Please check and complete as required. Calculation complete. Please wait patiently for the next simulation to start. Boom! Guanshan covered his ears and looked at the leaking bus. With the help of the flames that had not been extinguished, the bus exploded into a ball of blazing fireworks. Even the 2 corpses were swallowed by the abnormal flames and turned into ashes. Guanshan couldn't help but complain. This simulator really likes to explode. When everything calmed down, there was only a messy bus lying on the road. The night was still quiet. As for Guanshan himself, he picked up his phone and sent a message to Shin Dinghua. Then, he dialed 120. Hello, is this the emergency center? Juchuan Station. Yes, on the road not far from there. The bus had an accident, and I don't know what happened. It just exploded when the 3 members of the first team of the Yohao group escaped from BK's trap. To be precise, it was the teleportation maze that had failed because of BK's death. They rushed over anxiously. This was the scene they saw. In the explosion, the remains of the bus were burning. Only Guanshan stood alone by the railing in the distance. He had one hand in his pocket and was making a call. In the night wind, Guanshan's figure seemed to have experienced the vicissitudes of life. They could vaguely hear that he was calling 120. Because the scene was far from what they expected to be a fierce fight or a one-sided slaughter, the 3 of them chose to observe from the side out of caution. Gao Yi held the long sword in her hand tightly and remained vigilant. She whispered, "What about the source of the 2 energy level reactions?" Chun Pingyun fiddled with the energy level detector in his hand and looked confused. The energy level reaction disappeared. Gao Yi paused and said, "It's either a disguise or it's dead." Chun Pingyun shook his head. Just 30 seconds before we arrived, the energy level reaction was still there. And it seems like the target is fine. Tang Ji took a deep breath and looked as if he had seen a ghost. So, he killed those 2 again. Last time, it was 2 D-class. This time, it was 1 D-class and 1 C-class. He didn't dare to think about what would happen next time. This time, no one doubted whether Guanshan had any special ability. After all, among the 3 members of the first team, only Gao Yi was a C-class. They could only wonder, what kind of special ability did this guy have? After a while, the siren of an ambulance could be heard from afar. Tang Ji couldn't help but ask, "Then what? Are we just going to watch?" Gao Yi stared at Guanshan's figure and sheathed her long sword. She said, "Pay attention to the surroundings. The enemy might be lying in ambush. We'll act when Teacher Xiao arrives." Tang Jiao. And so, the 3 of them watched with numb faces as Guanshan communicated with the doctor, pointed at the scratches all over his body, and weakly sent him to the car and left. They felt that something wasn't right. Chapter 20. Tang Ji scratched his head. "Why do I feel like we didn't do anything? Did we just clean up his mess?" Chen Yunpeng complained. "Isn't that good? Do you want to fight with that class C?" Tang Ji laughed. "Forget it. It's good to clean up his mess." The 3-man team waited for about 10 minutes. When they arrived, it was the logistics team of the Tan formation. They quickly sealed off the scene and took away the bodies of Toro and BK. They skillfully covered up the incident according to the specifications of a traffic accident. Obviously, the Tan formation had taken over the police force in this area when the operation began. It was the same for the operation with Zhao Hong and his wife. This way, they could seal off the news as quickly as possible and deal with the follow-up issues. However, that operation was a standard failure. Even the commander was controlled by the enemy. The entire operation was a mistake from the beginning. She acted without reporting to the higher-ups. She described the 15 customers who had long become Fong Minmin's puppets as hostages that could still be saved. In order not to alert the enemy, she ordered other capable combatants to stay put and not completely seal off the restaurant. Only Lin Schumann, who had low combat power, was allowed to sneak in what seemed to be a reasonable and well-founded reason for their actions, had almost caused an even more serious consequence. The captain of the third team, Lin Wu, was suspended for a month and temporarily replaced by the vice captain. Although Fong Minmin was the one who did it, the cause was Lin Wu's error in judgment. He brought the infected puppets to the Research Institute, which led to the follow-up. However, Lin Wu himself suffered injuries from the fight with the parasites. He needed about a month to recuperate and check up. It was a small punishment. All in all, it was not unreasonable for the logistics team to occupy half of the Tan formation. With them, the ability users could fight to the best of their ability. Gao Yi communicated with the person in charge of the logistics team and confirmed the identities of the two dead ability users. One of them is a C-rank metahuman codenamed Worker B4, Tao Luo. His ability is the very dangerous elemental metal control. Because he likes to peel off the faces of losers, he's been very famous in recent years. The other one's identity is unknown, but he has the Worker B10 symbol on him. He should be a new member that was recently recruited. The person in charge showed the glass pendant with scorch marks. There was a strange insect sealed in the glass. It looked like a wasp, but it was more ferocious. However, it was obviously dead. He explained, it's the killer bee's signature pendant. It's said to be made by a meat-type esper. This is a child bug. As long as the stinger is left in someone's body, it will be connected to that person's life. The child bug itself will not be harmed. No matter how far it goes, it will return on its own. Those who have the pendant will also be able to sense each other's location. The person who controls the mother insect can control the child insects. The person in charge said doubtfully, but the strange thing is that we didn't find Tao Luo's pendant. We didn't take it either. Gao Yi shook her head and frowned. Her cold little face showed some helplessness. It's probably that guy again. Chen Yunpeng didn't understand. Why did he take it? Spoils of war? But why did he only take Tao Luo's? Tang Ji guessed, maybe because Tao Luo is a Class C, and he felt that the other Class D was too weak and not worthy. Gao Ye's eyes were deep. She suddenly said, it's also possible that because Tao Luo has the habit of skinning people as spoils of war, he also took a spoil of war from this person. If we didn't come, maybe he would have chosen. What about Tao Luo's face? This guess was too scary. It was filled with the ruthlessness of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Chun Yunpeng shuddered and couldn't help but say, I already said that the psychologist was unreliable. It's too ridiculous to be able to make someone green. What's the background of this guy? Tang Ji muttered. He kills without blinking. We don't even know his power level and abilities. We should have recruited him earlier or even detained him. Now that he's wandering around like this, I'm panicking. Don't worry. Didn't he go to the hospital? We'll go and have a chat with him later. Xiao Lei's voice came intermittently. The three of them turned their heads to greet him in surprise. They saw him riding a shared bicycle and climbing up the slope. With a squeak, he braked, got off, wiped his sweat, and said, Phew, I almost died from exhaustion after riding for 5 kilometers. The three of them were stunned. How did you ride here? Didn't you contact the logistics team? Xiao Lei spread his hands and said helplessly, that teleportation was too immoral. They left all my communication tools behind and teleported me away. He really didn't expect that the other party would directly send out a space-type Arcanist. He didn't make the corresponding preparations. Although Xiao Lei was a Class B Arcanist, in terms of power level, he was higher than everyone present combined. But power level didn't represent the danger level of an Arcanist. There were too many types of Arcanists. Since the beginning of the corresponding records, there were already thousands of types of Arcanists recorded. Among them, only the most dangerous 300 types were organized into a booklet called the List of Victims and circulated among Arcanists. As for why it was called this name, of course, it was because every dangerous Arcanist discovery would be accompanied by a victim statement or a suicide note or a corpse. When we arrived at the scene, there was only this sentence was the opening line that appeared the most frequently in this booklet. After the system's sorting, Arcanists were divided into 3 major categories: flesh type, elemental type, and special type. Among them, the flesh type was the most common Arcanist. It was divided into strengthening and mutation types. The biggest difference between the two was that there was no change in the nature of the body. Simply put, having an extra arm belonged to the strengthening category, while having an arm turn into a wing belonged to the mutation category. For example, Zhao Hong and Feng Minmin, who died at the hands of Guan Shan, belonged to the flesh type if they were to be classified. Zhao Hong only strengthened the ability that he already had, so he belonged to the strengthening category. Feng Minmin, on the other hand, turned her own flesh and blood into a bait and parasite with a certain level of consciousness. This was impossible as a human. At the same time, it was linked to the mind, so it was a combination of the mutation category and the special type. However, the flesh type was actually different from the impression that its name gave people. Not all Arcanists were burly devil musclemen or crooked devil people. On the contrary, because brain development also belonged to the strengthening category of the flesh type, almost all the researchers in the Arcanist organizations belonged to the flesh type. In other words, the flesh type had the most people with high IQ. The number of elemental type was very small, but as long as it appeared, it would definitely be at least a B grade. It was recognized as a strong type. The special type was the most numerous, and its composition was also the most complicated. It was like a wicker basket. Any Arcanist that couldn't be classified was put inside. Over the years, there were all kinds of messy things inside, but most of them were related to the concepts of mind, rules, cause and effect, and the like. The upper and lower limits were very different. Therefore, special type Arcanists were generally used in more targeted missions. This time, the Killer Bee, member codenamed Worker B10, was a space-type Arcanist of the special type. Xia Lei, whose ability was completely focused on combat, was instantly teleported away. There was nothing he could do. A special type Arcanist. Even a C-grade Arcanist can't be underestimated. Sometimes a special Arcanist can play a role that is even more powerful than an S-grade Arcanist. Xia Lei sighed and conveniently used his experience to warn the 3 young Arcanists in front of him. Let's go. We'll go see that great contributor. Xia Lei emphasized the word great and joked, this time, it's all thanks to him. He directly eradicated 2 killer bees. If it's considered a heroic act for a just cause, he'll definitely be given an award. At the same time, after the heroic act for a just cause, Guan Shan was already covered in bandages from head to toe. He was lying on a hospital bed, looking at the rewards of this simulation. Chapter 21. The emergency center was very quiet in the middle of the night. Occasionally, a nurse would push a cart full of medicine bottles and tools past, making a clattering sound. Guan Shan was lying on the hospital bed, pretending to look at his phone. In fact, he was organizing his gains. The simulation this time could be said to be dangerous. The difficulty had increased by more than a little. If it were not for Guan Shan's quick reflexes, it would have been GG. This is not good. I remember that the first simulation had something like a newbie prompt. This time, there is nothing. Does this mean that this difficulty is actually the normal difficulty? Guan Shan's mouth twitched. This horror game simulator really lived up to its name. Even if he had weapons and equipment, he would still be chased away by the monsters. However, correspondingly, the rewards this time were also more generous than the previous one. The simulator gave him a reward of 5,000 game coins and 2 skill points. It was more generous than the previous one. Guan Shan looked at his 5,625 game coins and felt that he was suddenly rich. It was wonderful. Unfortunately, because of the breakthrough mission in front of him, he could not unlock more items in the shop. Even the cleverest housewife could not cook without rice. Guan Shan could only buy backpack expansion slot *1 first. Game coins minus 1,000. His balance was 4,625. The number of slots in his backpack became 11. However, the space in his backpack did not seem to be empty because of this. Instead, it was more crowded than before. Although Guan Shan directly used 2 items this time, together with the items he obtained this time, he still took up 8 slots. This made Guan Shan feel the need to increase the capacity of his backpack. Every time the rewards were given to his backpack, he did not doubt that the Dog*T simulator would directly destroy the extra items if his backpack was full. That would be a huge loss. Let me see if there are any items that I could directly use or equip to make room for my backpack. Guanshan looked through them one by one and was surprised to find that there were quite a lot of consumables this time. Sublimation candy. Effect. Randomly obtain a skill book. Description. A potential test drug made from a rare material. The quality of this one is close to perfect. It is extremely rare and has no side effects. However, it still has a strong randomness. Guanshan's eyes lit up. Good stuff. It just so happens that the reward this time is 2 skill points. Now that my HP is locked, the passive effect of rotten flesh accumulation won't be of much use. Why don't I wait until I've completed the breakthrough mission? If I get useful skill, I'll learn it immediately. If not, I'll sell it to the simulator for money. The plan worked. Guanshan immediately chose to use it. Obtain skill book gravity control, *1 skill, gravity control, level 1. Type, active, cooldown, 10 seconds. Effect, you have the right to control 50 kilograms of gravity within 20 meters. Duration, 5 seconds. Description, if he doesn't get a concussion from being hit by 80 apples, he probably won't be able to use this ability. God got a concussion from being hit by an apple. If Newton heard this, he would have opened his coffin. Despite his complaints, Guanshan still silently used his skill points to learn the skill. Although the description of this skill was so lame, its effects were truly heaven-defying. No matter where it was used, gravity manipulation would definitely have a miraculous effect. If he didn't learn it, he wouldn't be human. With the remaining skill point, Guanshan conveniently learned the Mageweth Drawing skill book that was given by the achievement. Skill, Mageweth Drawing, level 1. Type, active, cooldown, 7 days. Effect, draw one of the Mageweths in life. Protection, blessing, thorns to give different effects. Duration, 50 seconds. Can be interrupted. Health. Health points increase by 20% immediately and receive slow healing for a period of time. Protection. Reduce damage received by 20%. Blessing. Become luckier. Thorns. Consume 2% of health points every second. Inflict damage equal to the target's health points. Description. When a Mageweth is lit up, it's like a cluster of flames burning in the dark. There's a very small probability that it will attract the prying eyes of the void. Guanshan's attention on this skill was mainly focused on the life Mageweth. What was this? This was a healing skill. Although he had healing potions on hand, there were only 5 left, and they were all slow healing. After the intense stimulation of the previous simulation and the situation where there were no items dropped midway, Guanshan was now simply too eager for healing. Although this skill had a cooldown of 7 days, it was still a guarantee and gave him a sense of security. As for the remaining Mageweths, at the moment, they were relatively useless. It could only be said that they were better than nothing. Guanshan put these 2 new skills into the skill column and continued to look at the other items. He murmured, Poison ointment. After applying it to a weapon, it can add a poison status to the enemy hit. It can only be used 5 times. Understood. Enchantment. Guanshan nodded and suddenly understood. Then, he tried to use the poison ointment on the unlimited magazine equipped on the Glock 17. Of course, he failed. TSK. Why can't it be used on firearms? Guanshan muttered and reluctantly put the poison ointment back. This bank card? It can actually increase the amount of real money? Guanshan was stunned. This item, called someone's bank card, had a very rough effect. It was increased the player's bank account deposit by 130,000 yuan. 130,000 yuan? Did I see it wrong? Guanshan's eyes widened. After hesitating for a moment, he still chose to use it. The simulator had already shown him its power twice. Although he didn't know whether the horror scenes in the game were real or not, the 2 explosions were real. After that, no one pursued the matter. It was as if someone had secretly erased the traces. It was also real. Since these items were given by the simulator, they could be used without any worries. Not to mention, Guanshan was short on money. When he was in high school, his parents both died because of an accident, leaving him alone. After that, Guanshan had been studying by himself while working to support himself. Although Shan Dinghua once wanted to help him, he didn't want his relationship with Shan Dinghua to be mixed with other elements. Things like money, no matter how you think about it, as long as it exists objectively, it will inevitably change some things. Therefore, Guanshan used to live a very cramped life. It was only slightly better when he started working. However, it was only a little better. It's still far from enough. Guanshan looked at the notification on his phone that his balance had increased. He licked his lips. For this horror game simulator, there was a hint of anticipation in addition to fear. As for the last two items, one was an accessory, and the other was a type of item that he had never seen before, a special scene activation item. Guanshan was about to study it when he heard someone knocking on the door. His first reaction was to think that it was Shan Dinghua. However, when he looked up, it was an unfamiliar middle-aged man followed by three young people. The middle-aged man gave him a friendly smile. Guanshan, right? There's something I want to talk to you about. Chapter 22. Guanshan naturally expected that someone might come looking for him. Although the system used art to make the entire scene disappear, it was still a bus, after all. He just didn't know where the system got this thing from. If everything on the bus was fake, then wouldn't it be an empty bus that drove into the station and then inexplicably leaked oil and exploded on the road? No matter how he looked at it, this was a supernatural event, right? And Guanshan, as the only witness, of course would be noticed. Well, when Guanshan called 120 to explain the situation, he said that he was an innocent passerby. As for the injuries on his body, of course, he was unlucky enough to be affected by the explosion. In order to avoid a life-threatening situation, Guanshan carefully thought about it. Because they were close to the suburbs, there were not many surveillance cameras on the nearby roads, and there were none on the road at the time. No matter what he said, no one would believe that the truth was actually he fought with two inhuman monsters here in the void for 300 rounds before blowing them up and destroying the evidence. In comparison, an empty bus driving on the road in the middle of the night for no reason and then exploding became more believable, right? But no matter what, in Guanshan's expectation, the person who came should be a real police comrade, not the group in front of him who seemed to have a family to feed. The middle-aged man who spoke first seemed to have a somewhat calm temperament, but his overall image was more like an old professor who had taught for decades, gentle and refined. As for the three young people who follow behind, they were even more unreliable. The two young people looked slightly younger than Guanshan and seemed to be college students, standing lazily. One looked like he worked out excessively, and the other even had tattoos on his arms and neck. He looked like a young man from the underworld, and the girl was even younger, about 17 or 18 years old. She had a pretty face, dark eyebrows, and almond-shaped eyes. She looked like an ancient court lady, but she was cold and expressionless. She wore a black sailor suit, revealing two white and slender legs. What was even more outrageous was that the girl was holding a sheathed long knife in her hand, which was about 1 meter long. No matter which one, they didn't look like a police officer. However, the middle-aged man mentioned Guanshan's name, which made him a little hesitant and wary. Guanshan straightened up and frowned. "Who are you?" In reality, he had already tensed up his entire body and was prepared to flee at any moment. It was impossible to fight head-on, not in this lifetime. This was not a simulation, and the people here were real. No matter what the other party's motive was, Guanshan couldn't possibly take out his Glock 17 and turn him into a sieve, right? He was a law-abiding citizen with a clean record. However, what Guanshan didn't know was that the four people opposite him were more nervous than he was. Xiaolei was fine, but he was full of curiosity towards Guanshan. He stepped forward and politely handed over his ID. "Stay in formation, Xiaolei. Don't worry, he's a proper police officer." He pointed at the three behind him and said with a pleasant expression, "These are my relatives' children. They were just rescued from the bar in the middle of the night. Coincidentally, you received a report here, so I had no choice but to bring them here." The three-man team. Although they knew that this was a test, it was still too insulting. It was as though they were giant babies who couldn't take care of themselves. Guanshan remained vigilant and glanced at the ID suspiciously. He was a reporter for a local newspaper, so he must have had dealings with the police before. There was nothing wrong with the ID. But the three behind him were indeed used from the underworld, hanging out in a bar in the middle of the night. Guanshan's gaze fell on the young man with the tattoos, focusing on his neck and arms. He raised his eyebrows and said calmly, "Oh, Tan formation. I've never heard of it. Does it deal with some special cases?" Guanshan knew that it was impossible for such a large, empty bus to suddenly explode on the road without alarming anyone. But he really didn't expect that there would be an official organization that dealt with such supernatural incidents. Could it be that science is a real thing? Xiaolei noticed his gaze and blocked Tang Ji's way as if nothing had happened. He said in a low voice, "Yeah, just like what you did today." Guanshan leaned back and revealed a professional smile. "Oh, is there a problem with what happened to me today?" He clenched his fists and his heart raced. He was very nervous right now. Guanshan suspected that the scene of him fighting a battle of wits and courage against the air might have been recorded. Such a strange and terrifying scene occurred on the bus, and not long after he got off, the bus exploded on the spot. It had to be said that there was indeed a hint of being possessed by a ghost. If there really was a department that dealt with such matters, then it would make sense for them to come looking for him. But this also meant that he wasn't far from death. Was he supposed to say, "Actually, nothing happened at that time, and I was just exercising my muscles and doing some radio gymnastics"? No way. I can't let something like this happen. If this matter were to be reported to science, then I wouldn't be able to live on Earth anymore. Now that things have come to this, do I have no choice but to silence him? Just as Guanshan's eyes flickered, and he was thinking about how to get through this life and death situation, Tang Ji, who was being looked at by Guanshan as a gangster, felt cold sweat dripping down his back. He secretly used telepathy to send a message to his earpiece and said nervously, Is he looking at me? Now look, just now, he wants to kill me first, right? Did he see that I'm the only one who doesn't have the ability to fight in close combat?" Tang Ji had already thought of what would happen next. Later, he might disturb you first, and then rush over to finish me off. Does he have a space-related ability? Is Little Invisible's gun still with him? Will he suddenly pull out his gun and shoot me into a sieve? Tang Ji's eyes were staring blankly, and he was already imagining his own death. Chen Yunpeng quickly comforted him. "No, I think that's just contempt for gangsters. Calm down." In order to prove the credibility of his words, he added, "You must be thinking too much." Not only did he look at you, he also looked at the captain's knife. Tang Ji said calmly, "I understand. He wants to take the opportunity to snatch the knife and then cut me in half." He said sadly, "No wonder he was staring at my neck just now." Chen Yunpeng, did he have to be so scared? Because of his ability, Tang Ji was more sensitive than the average person, but this reaction was too much. Although Chen Pingyun didn't believe it, Guanshan was indeed in a green safety state certified by a psychologist. In broad daylight, in front of so many people, Chen Yunpeng was stunned. He remembered that it was late at night, and the location was a remote hospital. There were only a few people around. It was a perfect location for a ghost movie and a crime scene. Coincidentally, the lights in the corridor outside flashed. Guanshan smiled, and his eyes seemed to be more and more naked and full of murderous intent. "Okay," he panicked. Chen Yunpeng silently took 2 steps back and moved to stand behind the captain. Looking at the petite and cute figure of the C-Class Esper in front of him, he felt very safe. Chapter 23. This guy is not easy to deal with. Looking at Guanshan's smile, Xiaolei thought to himself. In the past, when they recruited newly discovered ability users in the wild, they would use a similar opening statement to lower the other party's vigilance. Then, they would further release a friendly signal, telling the other party that they knew they had special abilities and that they were the same kind as them. There were many people like them, and they could provide a shelter so that they would not have to live in fear all the time. Generally speaking, after doing this, the other party would be tempted. At this time, they only needed to mention the benefits of registering as an ability user, the benefits of working, and so on, and the other party would definitely take the initiative. However, there would also be those who were more resistant and had persecutory delusions. These are usually left to psychologists to deal with. The logistics psychologists of the Tan formation were not just psychologists, but psychologists who had abilities related to the mind. Theoretical and practical abilities were as strong. As long as the other party was willing to register their information, their mission would be considered completed. Of course, since Xiaolei had personally come to deal with Guanshan, they naturally did not just want him to register. They also hoped that he could join the Tan formation. But it seems that he is very repulsed by the official organization, and even has a somewhat extreme reaction. Xiaolei deliberated for a moment and decided to continue with his probing attitude. He did not want to make things clear. After all, this sickly young man sitting on a hospital bed had a glorious record of single-handedly killing 3 grade D and 1 grade C. Until now, they had not completely analyzed his abilities. If they provoked his rebellious nature, the consequences would be unimaginable. It was not that Xiaolei was afraid that he could not beat him, but there was no need to go to that extent. Moreover, from the point of view of an enemy's enemy being a friend, they could be said to be on the same side. Xiaolei coughed twice and said gently, "No problem, no problem. I just want to know the specific time of the incident and the situation of the vehicle at the time. Don't be too nervous. You are the victim. What problem can there be? As for us, it was not easy for us to come here in the middle of the night. Let's work together." When the trio heard this, even their eyes were dead. Victim? The real victim had already turned into charcoal. If this guy was the victim, then even the outlaw Zhang San could be considered pure and flawless. Oh, I see. They came to me to understand the situation, which meant that they didn't understand the situation. Guanshan was stunned for a moment before he heaved a sigh of relief. It turned out to be a false alarm. In the end, he could still continue to live on Earth. This was worthy of celebration. It was around 10 o'clock at the time. I saw that the car hadn't come, so I decided to walk home. My house is not far from the company, so it only took me half an hour to get there. But halfway there, the car suddenly drove over and didn't stop. Before I could dodge, it exploded. Guanshan was sure that no one else went to the bus stop that night. He made up a story and combined it with the actual situation. He pretended to be serious and said, "I vaguely saw that there wasn't even a driver on the bus, let alone passengers. I was really scared." Xiaolei couldn't help but twitch his mouth as he listened to Guanshan talk nonsense. Whether or not Guanshan got on the bus was clearly stated in Schumann Lin's report, and the 3 people who were already dead were the best evidence. Giving such a completely opposite answer meant that he wanted to hide his role in this matter. Takaya suddenly asked, why wasn't there a driver or passengers? She didn't quite understand what was the point of trying to hide something like this. Since the killer bees had already sent people, they must have known that there were only 2 endings for these 2 people, life or death. Since they didn't return alive, they must have died in the mission. Saying that they didn't come at all was a meaningless cover-up. The killer bees would soon find out that Worker Bee 4 and Worker Bee 10 had died in the mission against Guanshan. It was just that they didn't know who killed them. They couldn't delay their actions, nor could they deceive them. Guanshan blinked and asked matter-of-factly, was there a driver and passengers on the bus? Takaya choked. The young man's expression was so confident that it was oppressive, as if it was the truth. Takaya's heart couldn't help but skip a beat, wondering if this was some kind of threat or bait. Takaya was speechless, but Xiaolei quickly reacted and said, of course not. Ha, my relative's child is a bit stubborn. Don't mind him. Guanshan nodded and raised his eyebrows. I can see that. He's just trying to argue the obvious. But then again, your relative's child is really stubborn, carrying a sword like that. Does he like cosplay? Takaya was speechless. Why did she feel like this person was mocking her? Xiaolei laughed. It really is a hobby. Okay, I think I understand what you mean. Around 11:30, you saw this empty bus on the side of the road, and then it suddenly exploded, right? Guanshan felt that his words were ridiculous, but in order to not die, he had to bite the bullet and say, yes, that was the situation at the time. Xiaolei felt that he really did understand. Guanshan was making a request. What he actually meant was that he wanted the Tin Formation to cover up the truth of the matter and not admit that he had anything to do with the deaths of the 2 worker bees. In this way, The killer bees would think that the Tan formation was the one who killed the two workers, and Guan Shan's strength was still that of a suspected D-class existence. For the killer bees, he was still a target that they could kill at any time. Good Lord, he was trying to remove himself from the picture and let the Tan formation take the blame. Xiao Lei's eyes flashed, but since he made a request, he must pay a price, right? Although the other party was unwilling to talk directly, if he was willing to cooperate tactfully, it could be considered a way. Xiao Lei pretended to take notes, then said, Guan Shan, you're a reporter from the Hangzhou Evening News, right? Guan Shan nodded. Our Tan formation has a little matter recently, and we hope that you can help. Xiao Lei said seriously, this matter is very important, and we need a reporter to find out the truth. Guan Shan's face was blank, and he pointed at himself. Me? That's right. Xiao Lei saw that he was no longer so resistant, and he was overjoyed. He felt that he had found the right way. After interacting with you just now, I think that you're a very suitable candidate. Guan Shan's face was blank. But I don't know what you want to do. No rush. Xiao Lei said pleasantly. In a few days, I'll send someone to find your boss and ask to borrow you from your newspaper. How about it? Guan Shan was a little hesitant. Xiao Lei waved his hand. You can think about it first. When the time comes, you can see the specific arrangements. Guan Shan couldn't resist this inexplicable warm invitation and could only nod and agree for the time being and send the four strange people away. As soon as they left, Shen Dinghua arrived, panting. She rushed into the ward and saw that Guan Shan was wrapped in bandages, and her dark eyes were suddenly covered with mist. P.S. Second update. Looking for recommendation votes. Looking for monthly votes.